Good evening and welcome to the July 10th meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board. Let's start with a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, well, thank you to our faithful listening audience. It's mid-July and most people are probably looking for a nice pond or something to swim in right now. So we will start our meeting and we'll start with announcements. I guess I have this one here, the Willie Ross Summerfest is going to be this Saturday, July 15th from 11 to 3 at Greenwood Park in Long Meadow, rain or shine. And please join the Willie Ross School for the Deaf as we say thank you to our friends and neighbors in Long Meadow and East Long Meadow for 50 years of supporting their community. And it's a barbecue with summer treats and family-friendly entertainment and field games, face painting, bounce house, swimming, and much more. And it's a great way for folks who have never been exposed to the deaf culture and the deaf community to cross the bridge and to celebrate with folks who've been in here 50 years. That's a long time, and the school's been growing, so it'll be a nice event for people. So, and Stephen, did you say you had announcements?
I just did. For those who didn't see it, speaking of Greenwood Pool is now open in the town manager's report. Town manager's report section of the meeting. I do have some information about the reason for the delayed opening. But the opening of Greenwood Pool was delayed, and I know it caused some inconvenience, and we are really sorry about that. I think we went into the renovation of Greenwood Pool, which was a CPA-funded project with great intentions. But the announcement part is it's open.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get into the details of the delay in the town manager's report, but I just want to announce that it is open.
Okay, so we'll just wait for some warmer weather. Of course, today would have been nice swimming weather.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other announcements? Yes?
I'm just going to give a last-minute pitch. This is the last week for public comments about the potential deletion or elimination of the G5 PVTA bus route going down Route 5. We did have public hearings. I will have to say that the showing was good, fair in one, and terrible in the other. And there's a lot of competition amongst the PVTA for monies, and if anybody is interested at all, they can send comments to comments@pvta.com, and they'll be entered into as part of the final decision-making process.
All right, great. And Mark, thanks for being part of that, because, we have folks who depend on the bus line to get them to work in our town.
It was amazing. There weren't a lot of people at this meeting, Tom, but the 2 or 3 people who came and told their stories. I won't be able to get to work. I won't be able to get to school. I won't be able.
Yeah.
I mean, the people who need it need it. There's no alternative.
Yeah, and so it's always the struggle for that financial balance and meeting the needs.
I actually did
Yes.
have an announcement, and the finance director coming in and looking at the Board of Assessors chair reminded me, Bob Leclerc, our assessor, our principal assessor, tendered his notice. He'll be leaving us next week, I think. Next Friday is his last day, the 21st. He's not retiring per se. He's relocating. I think he and his wife are moving to the Cape. He may get another job. He may not, but he's definitely leaving us after a long and illustrious career. So I just wanted to note that Bob will be leaving, and we have started the screening process for a new assessor. For the board's information, it is an appointment of the Board of Assessors that works under the supervision of the town manager. So I'll be working with the Board of Assessors to, keep track of their screening process, and hopefully we can get somebody as dedicated as Bob.
Okay, so that's, so the Board of Assessors will have the interviews at some point?
Yeah, it's under the state statutes, the appointment of the Board of Assessors.
Okay, so it goes through HR and then goes to HR
Well, HR
over
does
there.
facilitates it,
Preliminary.
but the Board of Assessors will screen the applicants and do the interviews.
Okay, well, great, thanks for mentioning that also. All right, and then I guess we'll go to resident comments if we have any this evening. Okay, then we'll go to select board comments. I don't know if you have any.
No.
No? We do have two members who are not here this evening, but we will move on. We have a quorum. So we can go next to the town manager report.
Thanks, Tom. Admittedly, the town manager report's a little light this week. I was on the road a little bit last week, so I apologize for that. But the big item in there is the long-awaited diagnostic evaluation of the Tina Lane rail crossing.
No.
If you look at it, there's not a lot to it. I mean, it just talks about what's there today, who was at the meeting, and I will say for the board's benefit, when it lists the people that were there, the fire chief Dearborn was there. I think another representative of the fire department was there as well. So they weren't included in the list, but they definitely were there. You know, I think I had reported Mass DOT's recommendation verbally that they were going to recommend the kind of full treatment, if you will, for crossing signals and things like that. And that clearly on that, there's a specific recommendations page, and that I think is clearly spelled out.
Right.
I know they've sent this to Amtrak. When I was on the road, I did have a dialogue with Mass DOT and the Federal Railroad Administration, and I think things are moving in the right direction, albeit not at the pace I think anyone would like to see. But we do have the crossing better secured, and I think, this report being issued to Amtrak will start a decision-making process on there, and that I hope will conclude relatively quickly.
Okay. Now, is there an opportunity for us to be supporting the state's recommendations by asking Amtrak to come here and tell us what they plan to do with that crossing, or?
I certainly think the board could, if we get to the point where Amtrak has given us an answer, or at least said, let's talk,
Yeah.
inviting me to a meeting, and the board, strongly supporting Mass DOT's recommendation would be fine.
Yeah, because I don't know how other people feel, but it would be nice if folks, if the Amtrak could come here, I don't know, but I think it's really important that they talk to the town about plans for that crossing. Hi, Marie, thanks for joining us. And we have, we're working on the town manager's report, and then there was a letter from Agawam. Do you want to mention that, or?
Oh, sure, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
There was also a letter from Fire Chief Alan, I think it's Sorois, and as you guys know, the fire department has a boat, and they use the boat for river rescues specifically. We get called down the river, unfortunately, quite a bit for river rescues, and we did assist the Agawam Fire Department, and Chief Sorois did send me an email commending the work of the Long Meadow Fire Department in that water rescue. And I think they were, shortly after I received that, I think they were back in Agawam with the foam trailer, because Agawam had a fuel tanker truck have an accident there too. So I think it's, the email reflects a level of effort, I think, regionally that gets somewhat undersold or underreported. And I've learned this going through the regional dispatch process. The departments, separate from the governance level, the departments are in this region really support each other extremely well, and it's really a team approach to especially big incidents. So I do want to commend Chief Dearborn and his team for the work they did on the river.
Yeah, and we, with the river there, we don't always think of ourselves as being, right next door to Agawam, but basically we're.
Yeah, we share.
neighbors.
We actually share a border with Agawam, and the border is in the middle of the river.
Yeah.
Our town line goes into the middle of the Connecticut River, and I think people feel like maybe it ends at the shoreline, but it does. It goes right in the middle of the river, and so does Agawam. So, like I said, you wouldn't think of Agawam as, we think of East Long Meadow as kind of our primary mutual aid partner, but we do go all over, and they come here as well.
All right.
I do have a couple more things, Tom. There'll be, I believe it's Thursday morning. There'll be a meeting of the bylaw task force, ZBA, planning board, myself, the building inspector, town council, actually it is Wednesday evening, to start outlining some of the bylaw changes we want to see. We've been talking for years about looking at some of our planning and zoning bylaws and some changes that may need to be made for recommendations for a future town meeting.
Mhm.
So they're gonna get that conversation going again. We did complete the taking of the Grand Meadows Tennis Complex
Mhm.
the week before last. So we now own that. We have installed a gate at the drive and secured the building. We did, on the day about an hour after the order of taking was recorded, we had the appraisers, our legal team, our DPW, our fire department, our police department, all going through the building and inspecting it and making sure we documented the condition of the property at the time of the order of taking was recorded. We had the fire department evaluate the safety systems there. The DPW looked at the water situation, and so we really, kind of had a SWAT team approach to make sure we understood at the moment we took ownership what's the status with the building. I think that information will serve us well in the future. And as we've heard before, there's been really significant dumping behind the building, and we think the gate that we've installed will put a stop to that.
Mhm. Okay, and as far as we know, we haven't heard anything from the owner about any legal action, or,
He has 3 years to file.
yeah,
It'll come when it comes. It's not.
right. Well,
I'm not going to go looking for it, but I'm sure.
no, well,
I'm sure
hopefully it won't.
When he's ready, we'll find out.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
The other part of that is we also have, I'm engaging a relocation consultant to determine if there's a business there and if it's eligible for relocation benefit, because when you take property by eminent domain, if there's a business interest, they're eligible for benefit.
okay. All right. Well,
So I'll have more on that.
Stephen, on that
Mhm.
committee, the bylaw committee,
Mhm.
is there an avenue to communicate information in this committee?
I think you can communicate it to me if you want me to forward it through. I don't know that they're posting the meeting. I don't think there's a quorum of any one board or committee. I don't think they have anything to hide. I just think there was one person from each committee who was going to get together, get things started. I truthfully, they have an agenda that they're working on, but it's being driven by the members of the committee. So if there's things you want to get on there, you can send it to me. I can certainly forward it to the group.
Who's on the committee? Can you send us that information?
Sure. David Lavenberg, who's the chair of the ZBA.
Mhm.
I believe Walter Gunn, who's the clerk of the planning board.
All right.
Actually, Don Holland just became the new chair of the planning board the other night. They reorganized, and
Oh.
Bruce Colton, who's been on the planning board for a very long time and has served very well as chair, they kind of offered it up, and they said, does somebody else want to take a turn at it? And Don Holland stepped up, so he's the new planning board chair.
Good.
Mhm. And then the pool, do we need to go over anything? It's
So,
not totally fixed,
yeah,
right? It's just workable?
Well, one more thing is the PVTA IMA with East Long Meadow for the senior ride. I did end up executing that agreement. Town council had a couple of comments on it. Basically wanted to clarify that when the document referred to town's obligation, it really was East Long Meadow's obligation, not Long Meadow's obligation. And that was the spirit of the agreement that we had worked out with East Long Meadow and Hamden. So we added a couple of sentences at the beginning, which is the only difference from what you guys saw was that it clarified that it's East Long Meadow's obligation to PVTA, not ours. And I felt like that was a good clarification because it wasn't self-evident that it was East Long Meadow's deal, not ours.
Mhm.
So I did execute that and bring it over to East Long Meadow. So we're waiting to get that fully executed by Hamden and
Mhm.
get. I know East Long Meadow is prepared to start offering the service as soon as possible. And then the pool. Again, the Greenwood Pool's opening was delayed. As you know, there was a $235,000 appropriation from CPA to renovate the pool. The original scope and application was done by previous administration in the DPW, and when we had turnover, one of the things we did was we really kind of reevaluated each capital project to kind of review the scopes and the applications, just to make sure that not only to make sure that we verify that that was the right project, but also so the new people could really pick up, hit the ground running with these new projects. The process of doing the Greenwood Pool, it was a much larger scope of work, which is why the appropriation was so significant. And Director Mazza, I think to his credit, said, hey, let's see if we can do this a different way and do a little more research than had been done previously. So you can see the narrative where they televise the lines. They thought they had the right scope to fix the pool leaking had been a significant problem for several years. Tens of thousands of gallons would be leaking out of the pool at a tremendous expense. So we televised the lines, which was an approach that had not been previously employed. And they thought they had isolated the leak, so we did the scope, bid it out, did the job. And then naturally there was additional leakage literally under the building. So they had to line the pipe under a valve that no longer turns. I mean, it's just one of these, Pandora's box type projects. So they had to slip line that part of the pipe, and they were able to get the pool open on Saturday. But we do think that there are persistent leaks. But some follow-up sealing of the pool in the fall, which was always scheduled to be after the summer season. That was always a part of the plan, was to do it after the summer season, so we didn't lose the whole year. But that'll be the next step, and we hope that will put a stop to it. But it's turned into a little bit more than we thought it was going to be.
Okay, well, thanks for the update on that.
Tom, I did have one
Yeah.
comment for, back in our select board comments. I noticed in the news that Senator Lesser's bill for the study, high-speed rail between here and Boston, was removed from the appropriation. And I don't know if it's appropriate for our town to voice our misunderstanding or disapproval with that action, because that directly affects our part of the world over here. And that was just study money, that's all it was. And now it's been denied at least another full year. Doesn't seem appropriate. I think there should be some type of signal from our community that we don't appreciate that type of judgment call. We need to study, we need high-speed rail going out of here. I don't know how the other board members feel, but it's in support of our local, our senator also. I know he's been fighting for that ever since he was put in office. And it summarily has just been thrown out at committee level, I guess.
Similarly, the provision that he had authored about public employees who are killed in the line of duty, non-public safety that he had talked about, that also did not make the final cut. Rich, I say I agree with you, but I do think that it was an important study for this region, for the long-term economic viability of the region. And I guess what I would suggest is we should have the senator come here and ask him, what should we do to help him
Okay.
get this done?
Well, that'd also be appropriate too. I mean, take his lead. But I think we should support our senator. And I think both, and especially for the other one, that was a kind of a common sense bill amendment that he was making, that we would cover other people other than law enforcement and firefighters who lost their life in the line of duty. I mean, it's.
You're asking for consensus of the board to have the chair write a letter in support of those two bills?
Well, we
to
can
the
have Senator
governor
Lesser, like Stephen said, we could actually invite Senator Lesser to come on in and meet with us.
Marie, my only question about writing a letter, who do we write the letter to?
I would say.
To the President of the Senate and the President of the House?
and the House
If
and
they're
the
money
governor.
bills, I guess it's the President of the House.
I would say write to all three of them, including the
Okay.
governor. I mean, because I know that the senator will come and say thank you for supporting, but I think if we shoot out a letter, it will be, they'll realize that they didn't just do it without any response from the community. So I
Right.
think it's a good idea, Richard.
Yeah.
Do we need a vote on it, or just general consensus?
General consensus is okay with me.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, so we'll just draft a letter. You want me to draft a letter?
Yeah, or
And-
Stephen or Debbie.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, again, I guess, Maria, I mean, I want to make, I guess what I would suggest is, if we want to support Senator Lesser, we should find out how,
Yeah.
like, we don't want to run cross purposes with him. So before we send the letter, I would, truthfully, his office can draft a letter and we can send it. I mean, I
That's
think
true.
that's probably the way to go. But we don't want to send something without knowing what the message he wants us to deliver is. I think offering our support to the senator and saying, express the willingness of the board to either adopt a resolution or send a letter, It would be how I would recommend doing it, but
Yeah.
Well, I think it's timely, we'd had a tradition every year of making sure we had our senator and representative in front of the select board somewhat early in our fiscal year, so we could ask just those questions and also let them know what the things were that were on our mind. So maybe scheduling them to be here, Tom, would
Yeah.
serve both purposes.
Yeah, that would be fine, we can do that. And of course, with a letter like that, I would also think that we would need to CC it to Richie Neal and to our senators, because the trains, it is a federal issue. I mean, there's really not a lot you can do at the state level. So I think it would be important for our federal representatives to be, aware of how our town feels, if we're going to let people know. I mean, they're the ones who are going to really bring the money to this. I mean, if the if the feds don't show up, there's no, you can have a lot of studies, and I just don't think that it's gonna go, personally, I just think you need the feds. So we should send a letter to everybody. Thank you. And seeing now we're back to select board comments, or not, is there any other comments you would
No,
wanna
I
make?
just had a question when the town manager's finished with his report.
Okay. And I think that was the last of it. Yeah.
Oh, I just had a question, actually, it was from a resident. Do you know how we've gone to one-way in front of a community? When are we going to really sort of fix that up with the correct signs and the correct
Yeah.
markings on the ground? Because it is sort of unsightly in the middle of town.
our engineering department is developing a capital plan request for that, for the next fiscal year,
So you said it's not going to happen until next spring?
potentially.
Is there anything that can make it look better other than all that orange stuff? And
Well, it's the orange stuff that prevents people from driving down the wrong way. It needs to be highly visible. Until we can do physical improvement that prevents vehicles from going that way.
Oh, so you're talking about actually building?
Oh, yeah, no,
an
extending the
island.
curb, and so
Oh,
it's,
okay.
we've gone, the town engineer, Andy Carrar, has done we've designed the improvement. We've evaluated the traffic committee. There was I think, not an insignificant cost to doing it. And so we're evaluating, should it be a capital project? Can we tag it on to another contract for the FY18 work? We're in the process of evaluating that, but I agree with you, it is somewhat unsightly, but it's noticeable, and that's by design. We need to make it as noticeable as possible.
Okay, thank you.
And that just made me think of something else, and now it escapes me.
The other question I had, I guess, is the DIF project. Any improvement on Eversource and all of that issue?
That's going along. I do think that they are working on basically a workaround. And my understanding from the last discussion I had a couple of weeks ago was that they were going to be able to build the improvement. We wouldn't have to compromise the improvements and still avoid or maybe go over the lines with sidewalk, which is fine. So we're looking at a way to do the project without having to relocate the lines.
But when are we going to actually do the street stuff? Because right now we're in the middle of Converse. Is it going to be when Converse is done and then we'll start the Dwight Road, or?
I would say I think our intention is to get designed and bid yet this fall.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
So I think it would be probably calendar 19. And as I was, nobody from Balthazar or Mass DOT was available for tonight, but I did forward. I printed my own copy, but I did forward for everybody's email. Converse Street had originally been projected to be finished next late spring, and according to the schedule that you have in your inbox now, they think they're going to be all done in November, which is, as I said, it's somewhat miraculous, almost 200 days earlier than they said they were going to be. Which means either they're working at breakneck pace or they completely botched their original schedule, as Mark noted. So, but that project is ahead of schedule and going very well. I did talk to the Balthazar project manager. He just returned from vacation. And he said it's going very well. We have had some feedback from residents. Mario and I have gone out and looked at the things and tried to address things as best we can. The other thing we're doing is looking at, right now, the water service to the tennis club is from Springfield.
Oh.
Sewer is ours, but water is there, so we're looking at stubbing a water main through the lot on Converse Street while the project is still open. It's a pretty big job, and it's a pretty big number. It's worth, in my mind, it's worth doing. because we don't want to be customers of the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission. We want to be our own
Well,
customers.
we are anyways.
But we want not a retail customer. We want to be our own customer. And so we're looking at doing a stub into the site before Converse Street is finalized. But again, it's a big project. But
Are we
we're tr-
talking 5, I mean, that's probably huge.
I mean,
But all you gotta do is bring it from the street out of the street, and then you pick it up.
across,
and
yeah,
go.
across the back of sidewalk, and then you're in, and that's fine.
Right.
But
Oh,
it's
okay.
still, it's tens of thousands. But it's a 21, it's a $15 million building. And so is it worth doing? We think it's worth doing, but we're still waiting to get some information back to figure out what it would cost and where we can get the money from. But I think there's a case to be made to do it.
One last question, the
I
diff.
thought you said you only had one question.
I know, but it just rolled up the diff, going back to the diff.
Yeah.
Are we going to get the agreements by the end of the summer, you think?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I actually had some email correspondence earlier today. Town council has the attorney for Crowley did prepare a draft. I did submit that to town council. Between the taking and some other stuff, we haven't gotten back around to that, but we will talk this week about it, and hopefully have a draft for the board to start looking at. Hopefully for next week's meeting, but potentially it could go into August. But by the end of the summer, yeah, I mean, I think it's getting there.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
So Converse Street was on the agenda as old business. Is there any other questions? You might as well just deal with that topic completely now, if there's any.
If there are, I'm going to tell you I have limited knowledge, so.
Yeah. Well, some folks were wondering, now, the cost of that project, what is it going to cost our town?
Our town?
Our town?
Zero.
Zero. That's all.
Well, we are doing some of the, like at the end of the job, when there's some backfilling and loaming and seeding and irrigation system repairs and things like that.
Yeah.
We do it in-house, but
Okay.
we will have to do that work, some of that repair work.
Mhm.
But in terms of the bulk of the $5 million general contract, that's 100% Mass DOT.
Okay, great. Well, that should make people who are concerned about the budget
Yeah.
happy.
Before it got started, we talked about it, and I said at the time, it's going to be a rough summer for the people on Converse Street and those who use it to commute. And it has been. I mean, it's truth in advertising. It's been every bit of that. But hopefully, we're getting to the point, especially with the sidewalk work largely done, where people will see what a tremendous benefit and what a neighborhood enhancement it's going to be when it's done. In fact, Beverly Hirschhorn was the one who made the comment that she saw people using the sidewalks over the weekend, and she was surprised to see so many people walking on the new sidewalks.
Mhm.
It was not a pedestrian-friendly thoroughfare
No.
before, and it's certainly going to be, and bike-friendly now, once it's all, you can't see that now because they haven't done the paving, but by the end of it, it's going to be pedestrian and bike-friendly and a tremendous benefit to the community. You just have to grind it out a little longer.
Mhm. Good. And was there any other questions on Converse Street? Okay, so then we can move to other old business, approval of the minutes for June 19th. Do I have a motion to,
And I'll move we approve the minutes of June 19th, regular select board meeting.
second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay, approved. All right, next, we have the appointments for the Charter Review Committee and the Board of Health. And we've run into some complications.
Can we do the Board of Health first, because I'm recusing myself on the other, so I was
Right.
going to wander in the hall and
Well,
play with my phone and that.
we could actually, see what happened with the Charter Review Committee is, we looked at how to rank people, and we had a system that I thought was going to really sort people out pretty clearly. And all the four of us who were voting all submitted those votes, and it was not going to be a problem, except that one voter's, it's not really accurate, because he had put one person from the Health Board on his list of people for the Charter Review Committee. And so that means there's one name missing from his list, so that person wouldn't get a vote. And so that's a problem. Yeah.
Let's do Marie's thing and do whatever, if she wants to recuse herself, she can, but
Well, I think what we're gonna have to do is delay the vote.
why? You can't,
You can't do it.
only people who are here can vote, and we will vote here in person. And whatever was done previously, we are not allowed to vote in a secret ballot for anything. can't vote by email. You can't
So
vote.
people who aren't here can't submit their data? Okay.
That's the process. The process is we vote people who are here,
All right.
and we do the vote in public.
Yeah, okay.
So
Well, that'll
I don't
make
see
it
there's a
easier.
problem with doing that, but Marie wants
Okay.
to do the Board of Health. I'm ready to go forward with the Board of Health. Do you have any objection to a motion, Marie?
No.
I'm gonna move that we appoint Mary Pat Toy and Dr. Robert Rappaport to the 3-year terms on the Board of Health expiring June 30th, 2020, and appoint Michael Umano to the Associate's term expiring June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Okay,
Let me know when you're done.
we will send someone.
Why
else
don't
for
you hold on 1 minute, because I'm going to present a motion that I would
Mhm.
like, you may need to vote on. If you're getting ready to move into the thing?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to present a motion that we change the configuration of that committee. We originally set it up with 6 members, and I would like to place a motion that we change that to have 6 permanent members with the addition of 2 associate non-voting members that can sit in all meetings, all discussions, but have no active vote.
Is that a motion?
That was a motion.
Oh, I'll second it.
Okay, so let's open that up for discussion. That would create more discussion in the meetings, so you had 2 more people.
Right.
And they'd be non-voting, but
Non-voting.
still they could express their opinions to the voters. And I mean, that sounds like a
Get a little
good,
more broader representation.
yeah.
And it's true of most committees.
Right. Just how do we come up with 6 as an even number?
You did that.
Why?
You said you
know.
wanted a supermajority on
I
an
don't-
actual vote.
Okay.
So you would actually, that was an actual decision because you said a
6 would make 4 out of 2?
4 out of, so that's why you went. So you
Okay.
would change it.
Oh, well, fine, if we're gonna do
So
6,
there-
But
then.
I said,
that's
whatever,
fine.
Mark. It was an interesting idea.
So we have, at least we'll have 2 more people to convince people to have a supermajority, I guess. So that sounds good. Any other discussion on this motion?
Did you guys do the Board of Health appointments? Did that pass?
Yes.
We did that, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Trying to make
and
some
we're
notes.
talking about the motion to have 2 additional
Non-voting associate members.
associates, non-voting associates on the board, and it's been seconded, we've had discussion, we'll have closed discussion, and then we'll take a vote. All those in favor, say, okay.
Mark,
So
did
that's
you want to add it,
approved.
make it 7?
Well, it's fine the way it is. It's fine. I think having this representation does, essentially gets more voices in there.
No, I mean, did you want to add it
No,
from
that's
6 to go
fine.
up to 7?
No, that's
Okay.
Okay,
All
so
right,
we
I'll
will.
wander out, just
get
let me
word
know
out to
when
you.
you're done.
You'll see at 11.
Okay,
All decaf, cream, right?
so as we move into the Charter Review Commission, or not commission, but committee, it's a committee, and they're just going to review the charter. They're not really going to change the charter, they're just going to review it and give us feedback. And I guess I'd like to start out, before we have any discussion on the issue and the vote, by saying that all the candidates who've applied are folks who have served the town for quite a bit. I mean, they've all earned the right to be on this committee. I hope other people feel the same way. They've been on a lot of different boards and committees over the years, and we're lucky to have such qualified people to be part of this process. And especially folks, who, I just, I can't even imagine, they just bring so much to the table. So in doing this, we want to, just feel that the folks who don't get on, we want you to continue to be part of contributing to the town and not, we just can't put everyone on the board. So what we've done is we've come up with a voting system, and Mark Gold has put together a grid that I've made some revisions to, but basically we will plug all the numbers in, and so,
So
yeah.
I got to tell you, Tom, I'm not really excited about the process.
Yeah,
Because I go back to my statistical, training that says anything that
Yeah.
uses averages or sums of highs and lows
yeah,
is inherently wrong. I think we just ought to have 3 people vote on the 6 people they want, and we find out if there's a majority of, in this case, 2 out of 3 votes
yeah.
for 6 people.
Right.
And if 6 people get 2 out of 3 votes, they're on the committee. And if they don't, then we look at the people who we put up there, who's gotten, then maybe we look at the next ones. But my suspicion is we'll be in better shape. But to do this addition, subtraction, and you can vote 1 through 5, and, because as I explained, I think, 1-5 can, gives somebody here veto power. And I don't think by me ranking somebody 10, I should veto somebody who the 2 of you may want to have nominated to it, and I would effectively be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think that, there is going to be only the 3 of us, unfortunately, involved in the voting, because Bill is not with us. And we were all able to give a top slot to 3 individuals. And, and then the other folks we would put in rank order. It is going to be hard to do this without having any ties. And when I looked at, other systems, that was really going to involve a lot of sort of voting off folks, or not voting off, but having ties. So I'm hoping that this would work. Now, Debbie, I believe you have all the votes. Did Richard give yours?
No.
No, I don't have Richard.
Okay, so Richard, would you be willing to turn in your vote, and she's going to
Yeah,
tally
no.
them on this grid?
But again,
or
Yeah, how
do you
are we gonna do it?
Comment?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
we've already,
No, we
I
haven't,
guess
Tom. We have not publicly voted.
No.
What Debbie has is not legal.
So,
You need to call for a vote.
Okay, so I had sent out an email explaining, the voting system, and I didn't give any feedback saying that that was particularly, unacceptable, and so.
I object to that.
so-
I sent you an email that says
Well-
it was unobjectionable. I also
Right.
sent an email saying it was
Right.
not legal for us to not vote publicly.
No,
So I
we
did
can
send
vote,
that email.
we can
and I'll
vote
read that
publicly, but
email.
I guess I'm just thinking, in the past, when we've had to make decisions like this, I mean, I recall we did one, and it was an executive session, and we did vote, and it was all put into a grid, and
Yeah,
there
we
were some
voted
ties,
in public.
yeah,
but,
yeah, I think, sorry.
yeah, and I remember there were some ties, and we re-voted
Yeah, we
for
voted in
certain
public though,
folks.
Tom.
I remember that was an executive session, but maybe I'm
Well,
mistaken.
I can't remember anything in executive, but if it has, it would have been in public in executive session. It still would have been not predetermined before.
Yeah.
Well,
If I may, so
yeah.
I don't remember the last one we did it, and Debbie and I were talking about this, and I couldn't put my finger on it, but we went through a similar situation, and what we did, and I think this is where there was some confusion,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think there's any, I think it's, yes, they have to be appointed in public. Discussion can be an executive session, because one of the executive session items under the law is reputational.
Yeah, only for discussion reputational items, yeah.
But the time, so there's 2 things. One, when we've had a situation where you have more applicants for something, or more parties than there are spaces,
Yeah,
we have, and this is what Tom was building off of, done a grid where it's rank your people, and if there's consensus on the top tier, then there doesn't need to be a lot of debate of all those. We can report back and say, based on the ranking, here are the top 6, 5, whatever the number is. Does the board want to consider, just want to move ahead to a vote on these people?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how that's followed, right? And I don't remember last time we did it, but I know we've done it fairly recently.
But it's done in this room.
In open session, sure.
In open session.
And I guess so then
Because
the other
Debbie, I
thing is,
remember, was running the matrix last
when
time.
there is differences of opinion and there isn't consensus on
Mm-hmm.
candidates, we have in the past gone into executive session to hash it out.
We could.
And you can't, because I think you're giving an analysis of why you feel one candidate is a better fit for the position than another.
Right.
And to some extent, it may be perceived as something that could be damaging to the reputation of the person, even
Right.
if no one's really saying, they stink. It may just be perceived as, something. So that's why you go into executive session, because we want to get volunteers we want to get people to continue to
Right.
volunteer without
Yeah.
fear that when there's a discussion on camera, they're going to be dragged through the mud a little bit, metaphorically speaking. So, so when I saw the email, I guess I didn't read it literally. I inferred it to mean that same process of we were going to see who the rankings were, and if there was a clear top tier of candidates that everyone agreed on, we would just be able to move to vote vote in open session on those people without having to do a lot of debate. That's what I
Well,
read.
that's what I thought, and so if I'm mistaken, I came up with a system I thought was going to be the best way to sort out the top six. And so I'd like to give it a chance and put the rankings into a grid. And I know you may not agree with that, Mark.
I absolutely don't agree with
And
it.
but
To the point where
but I
I'm
think
not
the
gonna
other,
vote on that
okay,
system, and then you won't
I've
have a
heard you say
quorum.
that.
Okay.
I've heard you say that. And what I'd like to say is that, I disagree. The system you have was
Right.
going to cause some problems in terms of having a lot of ties. And so, I've done a lot of work with numbers, and I've taught research and statistics, and so I feel confident in this approach that I think it's an accurate way to capture people's opinions about these candidates. And so then I guess it would come up, to Richard. I don't know if you have an opinion on,
No, I'll
ranking,
tell my votes on who I want,
okay.
but it should be public.
No,
Yeah.
we should, the tallying doesn't have to be public. The results should be
The
public.
voting must be public. You cannot use an email, a person's email in to cast their vote. They have to be here to publicly cast their vote.
So we have to read the numbers publicly.
Yeah.
That's what you believe?
Yeah, because the public has a right to know.
Yeah,
It's open air.
okay. And
Do you ready
agree
to take
with
my
that?
numbers? Okay, we were going to have, what, 3 people
I
rated
believe the public has the
111?
right to know.
Okay, so we have,
But Tom,
But
I'm going
do
to tell
we
you,
have
I'm
to
going
vote?
to leave the room, and you won't have a quorum, and you won't have any vote.
yeah, well, I
mean,
guess.
that's
if
my
that-
choice, I
yeah.
understand that. What I'm
Well,
telling you is
right.
that the system doesn't work.
Well, I fail to see why the system wouldn't work.
Because I've tried to explain it.
Yeah.
Because the process, and people at home have no idea what you're doing, but
Okay.
you're saying, we need 6 people, you're saying, pick 3 and then rank the others, numbers 2, 3,
Right.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Correct, yeah,
Right.
so your
And-
top
and I'm
3
saying
would be
that-
ones. Yeah.
Then, what?
The top 3 people we would choose,
But
we would
why
put
don't
a
you make
1
the top
for
6
3 people,
Since there's 6 positions.
because then we'd have a lot of ties. There's only 3 of us, then we could have a lot of
But,
ties.
and then we break the ties.
Well, I would rather that we have,
But this way-
we
this way
sort
you-
our top 3 votes.
I don't want to give
and
somebody
then
veto
get
power,
into
though,
order,
Tom.
and,
I don't think anybody should have veto power.
Well-
If I rank somebody 10, they
Yeah.
aren't in, even if
Right.
you 2 vote
Well,
rank them
that's,
1.
and that's why we do it publicly, I guess.
But I
So
think
people
that's
would know.
wrong. If you 2,
Yeah.
if 2 people vote somebody as a number 1,
Yeah.
they ought to be appointed. Don't you agree?
I think that we would have to work on, I think the voting is an accurate representation of who we would put on the board. I don't think it's inaccurate. And I don't think it's, I think that if you put 3 number 1 votes, and then you rank people 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that we would have a clear number of 6, and I think if you have 6 ones, I think that just, and I think, I'm only saying this based on the last time we did this, where we did a ranking system of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that took us several votes to get through to it.
We have
And
done
I-
that in the past, where you just
Yeah.
ranked them, if there's 10 applicants for 6 positions like this, you would rank them 1 through 10, and then basically the people who had, or 10 through 1. So the people who had the lowest number or the highest number, depending on how you weighted it.
Whatever.
Would go to the thing. So can I just?
Sure, please.
Given the disagreement about the system, can I request that we invite Marie back in, we dispatch with the rest of the business of the board, and then go back to this? Suspend this agenda item,
Right.
get through the rest of the agenda, and then hash this out. And then people aren't, then we don't, because we don't want to lose a quorum, and then, and then you leave, Marie comes back in, and we're kind of doing all this stuff.
Okay,
Is that what we're going to do?
we can do that if we're dealing with the
Yeah.
They're a good idea, Steve.
the chance of losing a
Best
quorum, I
idea you
guess
got
we will. put
Can
it
I leave now?
Later. Yeah, all right.
So it's a good discussion. We want to do this right.
Yeah.
It's an important committee,
Yeah,
and we don't want to not be able to fully explore what we need to do. But my fear is it'll turn into something where it'll make it difficult to do the rest of the business.
right. And again, hopefully we all feel the same way, that in this process of voting, I mean, we're trying to choose some folks who will hopefully be happy about being on the committee, but at the same time, I don't want to turn anyone off or have anyone feel offended
All right, so,
because, of the way it comes across, if they get a ranking that's a high number. So that's why I thought we would just compile it a little differently. Okay, so we're going to move on with the agenda and come back to the Charter Review Committee. And the next thing would be the Long Range Master Plan Directive. And I guess that goes to you, Mark? You'd sent the,
Well,
Oh,
both
oh,
worked
Maria,
on it.
yeah, okay, yeah,
We-
Maria.
Yeah, this one, okay.
We worked together on that,
yeah.
unless anyone had a problem with it.
Yeah, you're basically, you want to explain it, how you're asking the boards?
Go ahead, Maria, yes.
Well, I
You-
don't have it.
Oh, okay. There you
I'll
go.
just read it. We had discussed about the next step in the long-range plan, that we were going to ask for input from the boards and committees. And so Mark and I were given the directive to find a directive, and so we put together, dear board and committee chair, the select board's been working on updating the town's long-range plan. Over the past year, a survey of town residents was completed, and a summary of the results is now available. For the next step in updating the LRP, which is Long Range Plan, the Select Board would like input from each of the town-appointed boards and committees. Specifically, we need to know the initiatives and goals that your committee board would like to see as part of the Long Range Plan in regards to your area focus. Using a time horizon of 5, 10, and 20 years, the input from your committee is essential to the development of an updated and comprehensive LRP. We're asking that over the next 3 months, you include as a committee agenda item the development of our LRP goals and your committee's focus area, including capital projects, programming, and financial goals. In order to meet our overall LRP development timetable, we ask that your recommendations be in written form and be returned to us by November 1st. With the receipt of your input, we will then be able to better review and decide on the next step in the development of the LRP. We look forward to hearing from you. Respectfully, the Select Board.
Okay.
So the intent of this is to, as it says, we're going out to all the appointed boards and committees, asking them as part of their, to add to their agenda item, and giving them a time frame of developing items that they would like to see included in the revised long-range plan. And by giving them a time frame between now and November 1st, we thought that that would still give us a chance to get some things done this year rather than let them stretch it all out.
I just have one question. I was wondering, now, if the board had some sort of long-range plan or goal that didn't fit under the purview of their board, would they still be able to, I mean, do you think from this letter, they'd be able to see that they could still make those kinds of
Any
comments?
residents can do it personally, but I
Yeah.
hate to have someone like the Conservation Board all of a sudden decide that they're going to talk about the school's long-range goals. Because then it just becomes crazy. But if an individual from the board says, I want to tell the schools what their long-range, they can always make recommendations. But I was hoping, and that's why Mark, I'm not sure how you felt, that we really wanted to hear what the Conservation Board was interested in for conservation and the school committee for school committee.
Well, in theory, they're the experts in that
Yeah.
area, and so that's, right.
Okay, so, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Any other questions or comments on this?
We broke it down into 3 sections: capital, programming, and finance, but I don't know if anyone had any other ideas on what else to say. Tom?
Tom?
No, I think, yeah.
I guess what I would ask is then maybe a sentence that says, if you have any questions about this directive or the long-range plan, please
Call.
contact Director of Planning and Community Development. I just, because if someone gets this cold and they haven't been paying attention to what we're doing, they're gonna say, I don't understand this. I think the directive is clear and it's clearly written to reflect the discussion we've had at the board level, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be self-evident to someone who hasn't been following as a board or committee member. And so at least give them the opportunity to call me or you or
No,
Marie or something if they have any questions about the process generally.
Well,
That'd be the only thing I'd add.
I'm good with that. Yeah, that's fine. The other concern I have is that we get a response on this like we did on our response on the last thing we asked people for, which is goals, and which was very little response. And so I'm just wondering if we ought not do something besides just send them a letter in terms of following up specifically with the chairs of
my guess is what's going to happen is I'm going to end up going to
Oh, that's
these
great.
meetings where the agenda item is. I'm going to end up having to go and
Imagine.
talk them through it and kind of facilitate their discussion, just so they can have something to deliver back for the board's consideration, something that the board can chew on. I'm not.
Well, we can also do that too.
Yeah.
I mean, we could share that duty because there's a lot of them out there. I know.
I mean, they're not going to at the same time. I mean, I'm sure it'll be spread out. I'm sure they're not all going to get after it at the same time. And if it turns out that I just can't, if it becomes too much, I'll just say, hey, I need some help, or I'll assign someone from the town organization. But I don't see a board having this discussion without somebody in the room kind of not guiding them. They're going to choose what's important to them, and they're going to give us their expertise. But how to frame it, what we're thinking about, where we see the process moving towards, is something we'll have to go over and tell them in person. At least that's the way I see it. So I guess what I would say is maybe the directive in the bottom in the salutations should reflect that, for questions or additional assistance, please contact the town manager.
Well, do you think it would be helpful if we put a deadline, like, maybe
It
not
says November 1st in the letter.
November 1st, and you think that should work? I mean, it's kind of hard to think about November and July.
Well, but the problem is, most of them aren't going to meet until September, so you
Okay.
wanted to get a couple of meetings to do this at time.
Okay.
That was why we put November 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if that
I don't know if-
jumps out.
I think if we'd said September 1st, we'd have definitely gotten done. Well, fine, but
I think there's a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, so then we should we send this out? Do all of us need to sign this, or
no.
we just send this
Debbie
out?
can send it out.
Debbie will
to the
send this
select
out?
boards.
And add that one sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Be sure to bug the town manager.
Yeah.
No, she doesn't need a reminder.
No, the letter says to
letter.
be sure to be.
Be sure to-
Oh.
Yes.
Whoops.
Harass the town manager with
Yeah.
any questions.
No, we'll put on letterhead, we'll clean it up, and I guess I would suggest that the chair should sign it on behalf of the select board. So we'll clean it up, and I'll get your signature on it.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so we'll next, we move to new business and the appointment of the Director of Veteran Services. Oh, here she is.
Bye.
Oh, good evening. And if
So-
you could just,
Oh.
yeah, you have to speak in the mic, just pull it up, and then give us your name, and I guess,
Well, I was going to do
anything
a
else?
brief introduction.
Oh, you do, all right.
Yeah.
Take it away.
I mean, she can certainly speak for herself, but Lena Vilturo is my recommended appointment for the Director of Veteran Services. As you know, under the charter, department head appointments are subject to select board confirmation. The Valor Act II, which is a state law, requires that the Director of Veteran Services or Veteran Services Officer, those are used somewhat interchangeably, reports directly to the appointing authority. So even though it's not a very large department, we have treated it as a department head, a cabinet level position. Comes to staff meetings, that integration has worked well, especially on our Veterans Day road race, because it does require the work of all departments. Our Veteran Services Department also works closely with the Finance Department, our Adult Center, so I think that integration has worked well. So a little background before I turn it over to Lena to talk about her background. Jesus Pereira had given notice that he was going to be the Director of Veteran Services for Holyoke, which is a great job for him, and I'm proud of him and happy for him, and it was a great landing spot. Sorry to lose him, but it opened up another opportunity for us, and we went through and did advertise the position, and we had really, I think, a talented pool of applicants. And we went through and we screened the resumes. We had 2 rounds of interviews plus we usually do a standard computer test, Word, Excel, things like that. We had 2 finalists that we talked to. Both were excellent candidates. It was a very difficult decision, but we ended up. I'm recommending Lena based on her, not only her professional experience and her skills, but also some of the choices she's made. In her resume that you can see, where she's really pursued being a Director of Veteran Services as a career path by virtue of some internships and some other things. And I know that she's taken an interest in our veteran services here in Long Meadow before I think we'd even advertised the position. So based on all of that, she was, and we had our interview panel, Richard was on it with me and Erica Jelinas, and I think I would say I wouldn't say, she was the unanimous choice of the panel. And with that, I will ask Lena to just kind of give a brief summary of her background.
Hello.
I am a U.S. veteran, Army veteran. I currently also serve still in the 747 MP unit in Ware, Massachusetts. I was with Waste Management for about 7 years, and due to restructuring, my position was eliminated. I moved to Western Mass a couple of months ago. It made the most sense for me, and I had heard of the VSO position for Long Meadow, and it is something that I have done in the past. I've actually volunteered in a veteran service officer in the northern end of the state when I lived up there, and I am very, very passionate about helping veterans. It makes me very excited to look forward to doing this. I actually was at the senior center Wednesday, and I got to meet a bunch of the veterans then, and they're a great group of people, and I'm really excited.
Well, great. Well, thanks for the introduction. I don't know if anyone has any questions. We've all got a copy of her resume.
Your resume is extraordinarily comprehensive and quite qualified.
Thank you, sir.
I'd welcome you to Long Meadow.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sounds good.
And we, as Stephen said, we had 2 finalists. It was a hard decision to make. We had the 2 finalists interviewed very well.
Yeah, it was, like I said, we go out for positions and not just veteran services, but we go through this, I report to you guys all the time. Sometimes you go out and you just get a really amazing basket of applicants, and sometimes you go out and you're like, whoa. And we always want to we don't want to fill positions with just who's available. We want to fill positions with the right people, and there are times where we're fortunate to have multiple choices. And I think I would describe this as one of those cases where we did have multiple choices, but like I said, there were certain aspects of Lena's experience and resume that distinguished her, and it makes her, I think, the right fit.
I move we approve the appointment of. Go ahead. You want to ask questions? Go ahead, Maria.
Hi, ma'am.
I wanted to thank you for coming on board in Long Meadow, and I'm excited to see your background and everything. It's not just helping veterans, it's their families, and we have a lot of families here, and it's wonderful. I'm sure they've warned you about the road race. That's a lot of work.
Yes, that was actually brought up. Yes, ma'am. And I'm actually excited about it.
And I do have a concern I want you to keep in mind, and that is, I know right now that where you are located, there's very little privacy in being able to really work with people. And I know the previous agents went out and they did a lot of outreach within the homes, but I'm still hoping we'll be able to find some sort of solution to that problem.
Okay.
I know with Jesus, I mentioned the old American Legion building
Yes, ma'am.
that I thought would be great with a combination museum and office. But there is other
That's good
office-
feedback. Thank you.
But it would be really nice to find some way, because I know we're looking to build a new center sometime in the future, but it's still going to be several years down the line. So that is going to be a challenge you'll have in the next few years. Okay, so welcome. Thank you.
Okay, now?
So I guess we're ready for a
Okay,
vote.
I'll make a motion, we approve the appointment of Lena Veltoro as our veteran service agents.
Second.
Okay, second, all right. Any discussion further? No? Okay, call for a vote. All in favor? Okay, looks
Thank
like
you,
you
sir.
have it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
See you
Hope
tomorrow.
enjoy your work.
What?
I said I'll stay.
Oh, yeah.
Starts tomorrow.
Yeah, no one needs to
Good.
stay for these meetings.
All right.
Okay.
And we have a application for the closure of Center School, Converse Street, or was it straight in Center School, Carnival. So we have so I want to make a motion to
Yeah.
approve this application.
Place a motion that we approve the closure of Long Meadow Street directly in front of the center school for, let's see, what is it, for student
September
parents?
15th.
September 15th, no.
Yeah,
I
there's a
don't-
rain date, the 22nd.
Did they? I didn't see the rain date, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, excuse me, and with the rain date
Friday.
of September 22nd, 2017?
Okay,
Second.
second, okay, any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Okay, approved. And then we go to the, approve the article submission dates for the fall town meeting. So we all received that in our packet. And it is looking at, okay, so we have to announce this, get this organized now for citizen petitions and everything. And we're looking at a town meeting date on Tuesday, November 7th, 2017. Is there a motion to accept this
So moved.
article? Okay.
Second.
Second. Any, anything in there that looks any different than other approvals? Anything we need to discuss? No? Okay. All those in favor? Okay. It's approved unanimously. And now we go to the Select Board goal setting. And there's a couple of things that I had, I know Marie had a list. There's a couple of things I put on here to start with, and the first thing is this, like a board committee coordinator, or like a ombudsman for boards and committees. And so, for example, in, this letter that you're sending out in November, it might be helpful to have a person who would really just coordinate. I know we have, the senior center has a volunteer coordinator, and, but I also wonder if that might be something we should consider, as having someone who would, coordinate the volunteers, and maybe even a few things they could do, which would be some training, maybe some problem solving, but communications between the select board and the various board chairs, make sure that minutes and reports that come out of those boards are communicated clearly to the select board. I don't know if other people feel that there's, if you feel disconnected at all from what's going on in the boards, and if you think that this sort of a person could be helpful.
Are you thinking of an employee?
No, I'm thinking of just a volunteer.
A
Yeah.
volunteer outside the select board?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, because, so we would ask someone to volunteer to coordinate all of the boards.
yeah. To sort of just keep track of them and see that folks who, perhaps folks who aren't showing up, someone follows up with them, because I know that the committee chairs may not have time to do all that kind of thing. And, there might be someone who is, well, we could have someone in town who is a volunteer coordinator now, who's retired, who would think that this would be a fun task to take on. I mean, I guess that's part of what my thinking is. And then from time to time, that person could come to the board and just tell us, like, what's going on with the boards and that we might not be aware of. I don't know. That's,
I can see that person maybe following through on some of the things that, almost like a secretary for the boards, because there's complaints sometimes that boards aren't getting their minutes up like they're supposed to, or task force. And they could follow up on that, or check if there's a problem with attendance, or we could even coordinate the PIN issue that we need to get moving down the line. But when it comes down to actual issues that the boards and goals are doing, I think that would be really up to select board members too.
right.
Or the chair to work with the other chairs. But I could see a coordination of some kind of the functioning of the boards, rather than the material issues that come out of the boards.
Right, yeah, because each board has a director, so I mean, yeah, that's, we wouldn't, this person wouldn't have power over the directors of the boards. This would just be a person who would be an asset. And I guess, putting it on this plan, or on this, in terms of goals, it would just be something that we would look into further and try to outline a person. And so I don't know if, you feel that we need someone to.
What is
maybe
the,
like
what
a
is the need?
secretary.
I guess I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
What's the need? Is there something that's
out there? I mean, we got,
What is the problem we're trying to solve? Is
yeah,
that what
what's the
you're
problem we're
asking?
trying to solve?
Mm-hmm.
I've not heard of a problem out there.
Yeah. Well, I know that, last year I did before the town meeting, we had a gathering with a pizza party with all the
Right.
boards and so forth. And I guess that was really just, this idea that these boards are out there, they may not even know other people on other boards, and that I don't hear as much from the boards. I mean, we do get their monthly reports. I agree with that. But I didn't know if we needed anything additional, so that's why it's just something we would investigate, or just explore as a goal.
But I mean, what's broken though? That's what I don't understand, Tom.
Yeah.
Stephen, do you have a feeling?
Well,
what's broken?
can I
Mm-hmm.
offer on this? Because when you and I talked about this, I mean, I had a similar thought. We kind of kicked it back and forth when we were talking about it, and I'm not familiar with the role of this. Like I've never even heard of something like this, but as we talked about it, and I thought about it a little more, I think there's something that can be developed that does kind of I mean, basically, it would help town staff in some ways, in that if this coordinator or ombudsman or whatever you want to call it, make them go to the meetings and make sure all of the boards and committees are doing their open records and open meetings trainings. Make sure that, I mean, Kathy Ingram has to chase people down forever to do their State Ethics Commission online test, and everyone's supposed to do that. So there are certain statutorily required things that boards and committees must do above our pay grade. So this person could make sure that's done and make it so Debbie or Kathy or me aren't chasing them down. And the other thing is, there isn't a problem per se, but I do feel like there's often a disconnect between the activities of the boards and committees that are appointed by the select board and are theoretically advisory to the select board, and the work of the select board. Now, we're fortunate that you only usually discover the disconnect when something goes wrong, and and there's a problem, or a vote gets taken that isn't right, or they start going in a different direction. We don't have a lot of that. I think people in the community work relatively well together, but you want to leave it till something bad happens, and then there's this gap between where the select board's going and where I don't want to pick on the cultural council, historic district commission, demolition delay. I mean, you pick the committee, and all of a sudden they decide to go in a different direction. And there's no one, and then because there's no liaison to the board, you guys just aren't really aware of it. This coordinator theoretically could be in touch with the different boards and committees, discuss or get the chairs, look at their agendas. If they see an agenda item that isn't consistent with what the board's doing, they can say, hey, have you guys seen that this is what they're working on? I mean, just keep an eye on them, but not in a way that is intended to have a chilling effect on the activities of the boards, but really just make sure everyone is, together and communicating and everything else. I mean, the boards and committees can do their votes and make their recommendations however they want, but the select board should be, more aware of it. That was, so to answer, it's a kind of a long answer to a short question.
Very long.
Yeah. That was how I viewed this, as a way to improve the connectivity between the select board and the various boards and committees, where I think there is an absence of some of that right now.
Yes, Mark.
My count says there's like 34, 35 committees.
Yeah.
I think anybody who would take this on isn't in her or his right mind, trying to, and I applaud this idea of we need to see what's going on. I'll offer as an alternative is, we tried it a few years ago, got bogged down a little bit, but bringing committee chairs to this board, towards the select board, on an ongoing basis to report to the select board on what they're doing and what they need from us, as opposed to, trying to find a single person to serve that. I think it's just with 35 boards, how do you pick ones you do? The other thing is, when it comes in terms of, as Stephen said, how do we keep these folks on track with the mandatory things? I think that's our responsibility and their chair's responsibility, and more importantly, yes, we have trouble getting people in these positions, but people who aren't completing their mandatory trainings and things like that ought not be reappointed. I mean, and shame on us for not going to Kathy and saying, hey, these people are up for appointment, and of the people who are up for appointment, I mean, can we continue to appoint people who just say, well, we're going to do our thing, but we're not going to participate in the laws of the Commonwealth that require they do training or communicate, or if the chair's not sending us minutes. So I think part of it's our enforcement. I just think it'd be very, very difficult, if possible at all, to find somebody who wants to be a liaison to 35 boards
Yeah.
and committees.
That's a good, well, I agree. It might take more than one solution. Maybe it would involve the chairs coming here and then having a person also. Marie?
Well, you know, what you talked about when you had that first meeting where you had everyone together, maybe you should try to have a meeting at the beginning of the year for the chairs. And as the chair of the select board, you get together with the other chairs. What are the expectations? Because we're talking about what their bureaucratic requirements are. And, you know, such as open meeting law training, posting of the minutes. If we are going to continue with the PINs as the next phase of the PIN project, to go to the various committees and people that have been on the committees a long time, sort of find out from them where their needs are, and, you know, the chair communicate directly at this group meeting with the chairs. Maybe you want to have that a couple of times a year, because it is going to be hard. There might be someone who's a retired attorney out there would love to be ombudsman
Yeah.
for the Long Meadow, and I don't think it's something we should shoot down right away, but I think coordination of it has to come from the chair. Last year, I tried to get everyone to sign up for committees, and that just sort of fell flat. No one wants to run around and go to the various committees, but it is an issue, but the issue is, what is the best way to solve it?
Mark, did you say there's 35 committees?
Yeah.
So see, it could be a G35 summit.
Well, those are, you know, Marie, that's a good, you know, these are both good suggestions of things that we haven't, you know, that I'd like to, you know, to address this need, because I hate to think of these boards and committees. They're doing important work for the town, you know, zoning board, I mean, you know,
But-
board of
but not
appeals,
all at
all
the
these
same
things.
time.
Huh?
But not all at the same time, which is why I think, yes, there are 34 or 35, but some of them go great stretches without meeting.
Right.
And the other thing is, as I'm hearing this discussion, I thought of another function. And again, I don't think we're going to make a decision on it tonight, but I thought of another function that if we're going to carve something out, recruitment.
Well, recruitment
Yeah,
of
that's
boards.
true.
That's true, yeah. Most places have recruitment places, you know, that.
Volunteer recruitment for boards and committees specifically. Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's what I mean, is somebody to
Right.
recruit people to
Yeah.
fill these vacancies, because I think we're seeing that that's an issue. I mean, sometimes yes, sometimes no, but it's like I just said about filling jobs. Sometimes you get, like charter review, we have 10 for 6. Sometimes you'll have 5 for 7.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's hit or miss with the filling of seats.
And that's another good role for something like this, because there are a lot of people who are well qualified to be on the boards, who may not, you know, want to go through the appointment process, or some of the boards where they have to actually run, they may think, oh, I would never run for a position in town, but maybe they should be, and so recruitment, that is another good function. So, you know, this is just a preliminary discussion of this, and I appreciate your comments. I don't know if anyone has any
I like
others.
Marie's idea, though, of getting board chairs together a
together.
couple of times a year. I think that's a
Yeah.
great idea, right?
Good.
Yeah, because also people tend to share and cross-fertilization of ideas when they are sitting down and talking. But that would solve the problem on how to explain our directive. That
Right,
first
yeah.
meeting, you could actually go through that directive, beginning
Yep.
of September as a kickoff.
Yeah.
But having an assistant to the board, this is what you're describing, is you're describing an administrative assistant to the board, which is a volunteer position, because it's really our job to keep an eye on, these are our
These are
committees.
committees, yeah.
So if you sort of describe that as a administrative assistant to the board, or maybe even an intern, we could have a intern
Yeah.
come in and take that position, and then they get credit at Bay Path or something.
Well, it would really be a great experience for an intern, actually, as you mentioned that. And I think we might want to look at that. And maybe even someone from Bay Path University. I could talk to they must have an office for interns. And that would be a good solution, you know, because we could, and then we'll spell out some of the things we want, but this was a very valuable
And that would be your
Discussion.
intern, the chair's intern.
Yes, that would be, well, I've had interns before, I'm qualified, I can do that. The other thing that I had added here for, in the goal setting was the tax refund for home improvements, and I did send an email out. You know, I've been trying to work on this for a while, and today I managed to get it done at the last minute. And I think I even sent Paul, and I don't know if you got to look at it, but it's this home improvement exemption. And so I don't know if you guys have your computers, if you want to pull it up. The
Actually,
email,
for
did you
some
get it?
reason, I'm not getting the internet
Came
anymore.
in at 10:04 in your email, it was just a 10 after 4.
No, I'm saying right now, my computer's
It's
down.
not
It's not
picking your-
recognizing
it was very slow
the local
coming.
email.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tom, I just have a question.
Plenty of
Well, yeah, there's probably plenty of questions. As you went through this, I mean, I guess I'll
Yeah.
ask the same question. What's the problem we're trying to solve here with this proposal? Because right now, one of the things that keeps us out of the, away from the $25, or delays the $25 tax
Sure.
levy cap,
Yeah.
is our new growth, which, as modest as it may be, it's primarily based on these additions. And
Yeah.
to, exempt these from property taxes
Sure.
would certainly exacerbate the issue of our tax rates. And so I guess that's the second question. So the first question is,
Okay.
what problem are we trying to solve? The second question, do we know what this would cost us? I
What
mean,
does it- yeah.
and-
Well, I've done some preliminary work, and I guess the answer to the first one is, the reason I consider this to begin with is because we are a built-out community, and, the way we're going to increase our tax base is if people were to increase the real value of their homes. So if you had a $200,000 home and you did a $100,000 improvement, then for the remainder of, as long as that house is still worth $300,000, the town benefits on the tax increase. And so that's the main thing, because we don't have a lot of property that we can develop. So we have to look at, can we encourage people who have, not the high-end homes. I mean, this is clearly, homes under 500,000, which includes, I'd say, most of the homes in town, but not all of the homes in town. And then it would increase our tax base. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do that. And I think that one thing would be, I worked out a formula, and I actually worked with Paul and had a very busy time. He gave me some time to look over. And if we were to invest, if we look at like putting just $40,000 aside, $40,000, that would cover the tax bill for, I think it's, I'm trying to think, I wish I had brought let me see if I have this with me.
It's like $1.25 million, $1.5 million.
So, yeah, so $1.25 million. And so if we did that, at some point, we would, I had it, unfortunately, I thought I was well prepared, and I didn't bring the one sheet that had all those numbers all laid out. If you give me a minute, I can look for it. I don't know if other people have other questions while I look for this. Yes, Marie?
Actually, when it comes to the budgetary goals, what you're talking about there could fit into it, but my thought is sort of going up to 30,000 feet. And let's say one of our goals is we have to increase the tax base, and that's what you're talking about. And so if we give the goal, we want to increase the tax base this year, and then we leave it to the town manager, we can make recommendations, but then he comes back with the various ideas and say, well, this is how he decided to do it. Like for this year, we increased the tax base through the DIF, am I right? And so we could ask him to look into this, look into the development of, there's 4 or 5 things that are right down the table now. This could be one of the things. The other could be the development of the, secondary homes that the Housing Authority's been talking about for a while? the
Accessory
accessory
apartments.
apartments, the development of the water tower property, all sorts of various things. But we vote the goal, and then the operational effect, the town manager either brings it to us, or else he brings options to us and we vote on it. But I think that this could be one of the tools in the toolbox, but I think we should be a little higher in our goal setting, and that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you know of any place across the Commonwealth where they have this in place?
I haven't read it, quite honestly. I had to leave early today, but it would have to be special legislation, and I'm unaware of any community that has, from what I know of it, what we've spoken about in the past, I'm unaware of any community having this type of option, let's say.
Tom, in your research, did you find any
Well,
community that has it?
I think what we see regularly in the news is that towns, and like City of Springfield, had a special tax agreement that they made with the company that built
With businesses.
for the business who
Right.
built the trains. And so we know that it happens in communities that are trying to expand their economic base. Now, we don't have the luxury of expanding our economic base because we have such a small area of commercial real estate. It is happening in New York State.
Okay, but I'll take that as a no, though.
And then, well-
You haven't found any community
Well,
that's actually doing.
the other thing I will get to is that
Please.
the city of Chicopee, for example, wanted to increase the number of resident-occupied three-family homes.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they did is they gave a tax rebate to individuals who moved into homes that were three-family homes. And so that's very similar to what we're doing. We're giving a
But-
tax break
but
for
was
people
it-
doing things.
Was it a
that-
home rule change?
Yeah, they didn't do, no, because they have just appropriated
Okay, 'cause we can't do that.
$40,000 a year.
That's a different form of government up there, too.
Right, but it would still fall under the state tax statutes. Now, there was a proposal that I've discussed in the past, and I've taken to the attention of our legislators, and I haven't heard anything back, and I don't believe that proposal's going anywhere. So that's why I put in here that we're looking at either a home rule petition, or that we would look at appropriating, $40,000 for an 8-year period, and at the end of that eight-year period, we would have an increase of about $1 million in terms of real estate that then can be assessed. And Paul, I guess if we look at the assessment of $1 million, what would be the return to the town?
20,000?
Yeah.
20,000. And that would be 20,000 for, well, forever, I guess,
But we gave up $40,000 to get 20,000.
We gave up 40
Well,
to
well, I
get
think-
20, but we gave up $40,000 for a 8-year period, and then we'll get 20,000 for a 40-year period.
You gave up 40, but that's, you're right, it depends on how much you leverage with the 40,000. I mean, it's, but the other thing is, one of the things I like about the idea is that it's not transferable. Because a lot of times people will spruce up a house, and this is where you can, under this concept, people who come in and flip houses, of which we have many, they don't get the benefit of this for very long. Because they
Right.
come in, they fix the house up. I mean, my only concern would be, and I'm thinking a lot, Tom, is would this turn flippers into renters? So it'd have to be, and I think we have, it has to be owner occupied.
Right, I put
Yeah.
that on. I probably didn't get this until late in the day, but this does talk about people as being a owner-occupied property of a person who's lived there at least 5 years. The property would have to be at least 5 years old in order to qualify. A person couldn't qualify for more than one property at a time. And then,
Would you reach out to the legislator? Was that you as a person, or as board member, or what?
well, we had that joint meeting
Right.
with the legislator, and we had the Senate President here.
Right.
And I gave him that information also. So
But you haven't heard anything back from them either?
I don't think I will. No,
Yeah.
I don't think I will.
Well,
No.
yeah, but this needs support. It's not going to make it through without support. I think Mark's point was pretty good, too, and, you say, we're going to reduce the amount of revenue coming in from improvements, and that's
Right.
kind of going the wrong direction. I mean,
Mhm.
our looming tax rate is our number one problem,
Right.
and that kind of takes a curve around the corner at it, takes a swipe at it like it's not there, and it is there.
Yeah.
I understand your point about long-term growth, but, you know, this range is $100,000. Well, let's be honest, that's a kitchen in this town.
Yeah.
It's a modified kitchen.
Mhm.
60 to 100,000 normal kitchen.
Right.
Stephen, I mean, you just put a kitchen in and it just,
Yes, how much did you spend?
The assessor's here now.
Yeah, yeah. He came by. Actually, he came by today, and I'm like, "Oh, you're gonna get me once before you leave, aren't you,
Yeah.
Bob?" Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Way back.
I will tell you that improvements are at a premium.
very much.
I think, you know, I think that, you know, I don't think this is being presented for a vote. I think it's being presented as a goal that the
Right.
board can chew on as one of our, as Marie said, a tool in the toolbox for future revenue growth.
This
I
is
think-
not
I
a
think-
goal. This is the solution, though. This is not a goal. When Marie was talking about the overall goal. like
Right, but
Blue
if the,
Star
over- but
panel
if
to
the board
identify
has an
50
overall goal
things,
of
you know.
expanding tax base,
Right,
this is one option the board can consider
right.
doing
Yeah,
that.
this is
And
down
I-
the bottom of the line.
And I'll be honest with you, there are challenges with this, no doubt. Legal
Yeah.
challenges, there's a lot of hurdles.
Yeah, staff time.
Yeah, but
How do you decide who gets it if more people apply than money you get?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
But I do think that the idea of increasing value in the community by improving the properties, I mean, we have a lot of properties that were built in the 50s and weren't touched. That was the reason why I have a new kitchen, is because my kitchen was from 1958.
Your wife wanted a new kitchen.
Well, yeah, I mean, we had carpet in our kitchen. I mean,
Yeah.
but I think that we are like a lot of people in this community that have older things. And the one thing Long Meadow has is, and we have a member of Board of Assessors here, I think he affirmed that there's a lot of home sales. That even in down markets, home sales volumes stay steady, even if prices fluctuate a little bit. And so it is I don't say a transient community, but there is a transience to the community that I think gives us the potential for making something like this happen. Because the ideal scenario is somebody comes in to get the exemption, they do the improvement, they add the value, and then they sell the house the next day. I mean, that's the ideal for us, because then they get the benefit of the exemption, and they're like, oh, geez, we're gonna move.
The only-
And then the exemption
yeah.
does not go, but the value continues on.
Right.
But Stephen,
But the-
if somebody's gonna come in and flip a house or fix the house up and not take advantage of the exemptions, they probably would have done that
Yeah.
renovation anyway,
Right.
just to turn the house
But a
over
lot of,
again.
I mean, a lot of economic incentives are like that, though, Mark. I mean, this is like micro incentive. Because Tom's point about the train company, and they're not rebates. They're usually, and then you cannot abate property taxes under Mass General Law. Usually, someone else is just paying the bill. Like they'll get a grant or an economic development incentive, but they can't. They're getting assessed full freight, and they're just figuring out a way how the bill gets paid a different, right? Is that?
Yeah.
No, I believe that they actually get a break of the tax.
Oh, they actually do get a tax break.
Right, but again, they are commercial type of properties, and I do believe that there are statutes that address those for some types of tax
Right.
incentives.
For commercial.
For
Right.
commercial.
And those statutes, I would say that they discriminate against our kind of a community.
Right.
Because they don't include us.
Well, I guess I wouldn't use the
Yeah.
word discrimination. I would just say we don't fit the profile.
We don't fit the profile. And we
But
never will.
But this is one way. This is one way of kind of getting to that. It is
Yeah.
a kind of a micro incentive program for residential things. And I think my personal take is I think the idea has potential, but there are some things we'd have to work through. So I
Right.
guess I would just
Yeah.
I think it's worth talking about as one of the options for expanding tax base.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing too is I just want to respond to Richard's comment is that, when we do property assessments, when houses do sell, I mean, that is how they price houses. And so the prices of houses go up when they look at comparables houses and they look at, and so if all the comps in your neighborhood have done some additions, then it makes your house more valuable. And so, I mean, I think it's getting people to invest in our town and improve the real estate So I think there's value in that.
Yeah, well, we're not
in
saying there's
addition
not,
to-
but this
Yeah.
is, this is a solution, this is a piece, it's
Right.
not the cure.
Well, I guess, part of, it, when we look at a policy making board, I see this as a policy that we
Yeah.
would want to just look through, and Marie,
Yeah, see, that's where we've been having trouble over the years. We got to be careful, because there's a thing between policy
yeah,
and there's smart goals that we're going to try to reach, and there's projects. And this board always floats into projects.
Right.
And I've been yelled at every year, a project's not a goal, okay? So this is a tool in the toolbox. And I think that we should continue to fill it out and give more information and push it, but I think it's not a goal. It's a idea, a concept, and I'm always coming up with ideas, and they sometimes float to the top, and often they get thrown out. But I think this is worth getting more information and encouraging our professional staff to consider it as a way of expanding the tax base, because you're right, we're residential. This is going to be about the only way we can start to inch that way, but it's got to be carefully crafted to make it work.
yeah.
And hopefully, we will encourage people to come and increase the value of the properties here in our town rather than the neighboring town, because we have this thing that's motivating, encouraging them. But yet, I don't think it can be a goal. I think it can be a project that we try to encourage to have it follow through. But the goal is increasing the tax base or the value of our properties.
Yeah, and I wouldn't waste people's time if I didn't think that this was something that's going to be valuable to our community. And, we have a lot of folks here who are on a fixed income and would not choose to have their taxes go up. And they were very clear about that. They might say they'd like to go down. And this is a incentive for people who can afford to increase their taxes by doing home improvements, to encourage them to go ahead and do it. And yeah, they will pay a higher tax.
Chopping a lot of statements together, because I can guarantee you, if Mama says she wants a new kitchen, I'm not gonna take the tax, and Mama's getting a new kitchen.
Yeah.
$2,000 a year, I'm not gonna hear it. You're mixing too many pieces, and I
Are you
agree.
watching?
Politicians have to mix the pieces together.
We all heard it. It's on camera.
Yeah.
Okay, I've seen his
Yeah.
picture. He can't do anything to
Can
prove
you clip
that.
that tape, please?
Can I just add,
Yes.
in order to consider this, I think,
Yeah.
clearly, it's not going to be our decision. It's going to end up in town meeting, since you're proposing it. It probably
Right,
needs
yeah.
to be something beyond that. But, we need to understand, what's the cost to the town and what's the benefit to the town, more
Yeah.
than, and I think you've got a lot of energy behind this, and if we can figure that out a little bit better, I think it'd be really good to put some,
Yeah.
for example, when we have the senior home improvement program,
Yeah.
we know what the cost to the town is, but we also know that and the benefits aren't financial, but they're letting people stay in their house, and they're letting, people make repairs. Most of them are roofs, and most of them are, paint that's falling, siding that's falling down, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the more meat you can put on these bones, I think the more better we'll understand this stuff.
Well, if I got some for you. No, because I have an Excel spreadsheet that I will send you, and we can talk about it. I know you
Oh,
like
no,
that.
that's
Send
a
Mark a spreadsheet.
challenge.
That's
You
a-
never give a spreadsheet to Mark.
No, I'm willing to
do
throw that. I'm willing
so
to do that.
let me
I
just
think
do
you'll have
that.
fun with it. Yes.
So I get to kind of bring it back, because, like I said, when we talked about, because to go back to if you're going to use me as an analogy, okay, we did the kitchen, and I think not even conceptually, I think our house probably is more valuable today than it was with the 1958 kitchen.
Okay.
And that's what I think Tom's trying to get at. Now, that value isn't really now, like I said, Bob Leclerc came by today, so I'm sure that value is going to be captured now, but the value isn't captured,
You don't have more square
broadly.
feet. You don't have more
Right.
square feet
But it's not
in the house.
captured, it's captured broadly when the house sells.
Right.
And that's the thing. The only thing I would say is, so I guess what I would dial back from this is improvements to a home generally increase. Now, if I decided I wanted to put a hot tub in the middle of my kitchen, that may not increase the value, because that's kind of weird. But so there has to be, so there is some subjectivity for this type of thing. But I think taking this concept of home improvements increase the value, it's that micro level increase in valuation that keeps the $25 per thousand deadline pushing out. That's why we pushed it out a year, because we went up 6% in value. This is conceptually one way to do that. I think the details we need to work out and right size for us, but I do think there's a there in terms of the concept. So I think what I'd say is, for moving forward, enter it into the mix of the next goals discussion, and then the board will vote on what ones they want to pursue. And if this is one of the ones the board wants to pursue, then we can certainly, take it from there.
Yeah,
It's-
I'll
okay.
just throw out
Yeah.
some, because Stephen reminded me, I mean, there's a big difference between renovating your bathroom, which may cost $10,000, not $100,000. I don't,
Right.
okay, whatever,
Right.
and putting a 2,500 square foot addition on your, or even a
Right.
500 square foot addition on your
Yeah.
house, something that,
Yeah.
you put an addition on your house, it's true value and that we can capture, as opposed to, so I took out my 1955 bathroom and put in a 2017 bathroom.
Yeah.
It's value in resale, but it's not really assessed value per se.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
Right,
thing.
well, originally I had thought that we would limit this kind of a program to people who were increasing the square foot of their house, square foot of living space. But then I was convinced maybe we needed to expand it to other kinds of renovations that would increase the value of the home. But, we'd have to have some kind of it would have to be spelled out a little clearer, and I'd like to see that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'd say, Tom, I'm sorry to,
Yeah.
but to some extent, that goes back to the goals discussion. If the goal is tax relief, then you would say, for example, lower the value of the property to be eligible.
Right,
So you'd have people in smaller homes, and you would means test it. There's no sense in harming our economic position by extending a tax benefit to someone who doesn't really need it.
mhm,
If the goal was tax-based expansion, then you would not means test it. You would make it so anybody who does, you would maybe make a minimum threshold for value of the improvement instead of a cap. Because that's where the biggest bang, I mean, if someone has a small house on a small lot, they're not really gonna be able to make a meaningful difference in the value of their property, 100,000 or more, because they're still landlocked and it's the same size house. If somebody has a small house on a big lot and they put on a huge addition, from a valuation standpoint, that makes a very big difference.
yeah.
And so
right.
you have to kind of look at what types of things are in capture, and it's two very different approaches: tax relief, tax-based expansion. I mean, the people who do that, the rail car factory,
Mhm.
that's tax-based expansion. That's not tax relief.
Mhm.
Now, theoretically, they'd be able to extend. You can then extend tax relief to people, or the taxes don't go up as high, so everybody gets tax relief if you're able to expand your tax base.
Mhm.
It often doesn't work that cleanly, but I would just offer that to kind of frame the discussion going forward.
Yeah.
Great.
One
Thanks.
point, and then I'll stop discussing.
Yeah.
It's a bigger item that could be discussed tonight. This
Oh, yeah.
also brings in zoning and everything else, and we've talked about that.
Sure.
Sure.
I mean, visual quality increases value of homes too.
Yeah, right.
Very easily does that, or detracts from the value of a home very easily. The thing is, if we're going to be, and we should be serious about it this year, but you almost need like a CBO to rate these things, because there's a lot of people need to sit at the table to talk these proposals over. And we may not necessarily have the skill sets at this table to
Oh, right,
properly
yeah.
evaluate all these. We certainly have our skills, but it needs to be a broad spectrum of people that would attach any proposal on taxes or
Yeah.
all of these things, including Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. I mean, they may have even done some stuff on this already. There's, bringing together all the wholesale information, which Marie says, get it as a big goal and start to organize from the top, and then all these things will start to fall out of the process.
Yeah.
I mean, to do the analysis, Richard, we would have to, it would be a lot of work on our end.
It would
And that's
be.
why I would want a board directive as a part of a larger suite to do it. I mean, we'd have to go back and look at recent history of building permits and assessment
Mhm.
inspections, and there's a lot of data would have to be pulled together, just to even see if there's a there in terms of an economic gain for this.
But what I say, if you and I sat down tomorrow and brainstormed everything we could think of that would increase property values in the community, we'd throw the darts on the wall, and then we collect 15 of them and say, okay, who's going to grade these things? Who's going to go in-depth? I don't think the board's going to do it. I think it's a committee that's going to have to do it. It's going to have to people, Paul's going to have to be in there, your assessor people are going to have, it's a large group effort. And not necessarily a town function per se, Stephen, but a
Yeah,
group
you could
that,
talk to the Collins Center or something like that, but
No, I don't even mean going there. I'm talking about in-house, that we've got a.
It's a lot of work just to
we're
get ready to ask somebody the question, what's this worth?
forming- Yeah, we're forming some pretty good committees, and there's certainly, we have some extremely talented resources in this community that could sit to the table and put in, and give reasonable input on this.
Right, yeah. And so anyone watching who has any input on this discussion, please email me. I do appreciate you taking the time to review this and give me some feedback on it. Because there are people who feel right at this point that they would, because of zoning and different things, they said if, in terms of improving their house, they said it would be easier just to move to another community than to try to do home improvements. And it's kind of a sad picture of the town,
I
when
don't
people
see
are
them
feeling
doing
that
it, though,
way.
do you?
Huh?
I don't see them doing it.
No, they're not leaving.
Yeah.
But they aren't doing their household either. So in terms of additional goals, I know Marie, because we didn't have time to talk about this the last meeting, and, some of these, you've touched on increasing the tax base, which we've already discussed on. And then, did you have any others that you?
Well, Yeah, I think that it was all of the things that we've sort of been talking about for years and that we've been trying to push, whether it's decreasing the operating budget, decreasing our pension liabilities every year. I think it was interesting, especially when we had that joint meeting where they said your liabilities are decided by September 30th, depending on what your total payroll was. And so finding any way we can to shrink that payroll, and decrease the number of benefited positions, so decrease our OPEB liability. These, up till now, what we've always said is we're trying to come in with a balanced budget, but I think we need to start having some more long-term goals that will help us get out of the fiscal issues that we know we're running into. So that's why in there was increasing the tax base. Also, I was thinking we've got to find a way that we every year systematically decrease our taxes. And I know, Mark, you always said we've got a little $10,000 here. Let's throw it towards that.
Oh, we
And
increase our
maybe-
tax rate.
Tax rate, yeah, tax rate. And so you said, well, let's take the $10,000 we got out of free cash and we'll put that towards it. And we always say, oh, it's a small amount, but if we systematically have a policy that we do take these, or a certain percentage of our free cash that goes towards the tax rate, but it would be something we'd have to decide on some upper level goals. And that's why I keep bringing these up, because we have to decide these type of goals now before we hit the budget season and our committees and everyone get going, rather than when we usually do our goal setting, which is often the end of the summer and September. And if we were talking about town manager, I said, this is the time to put the SMART goals in place. Mark?
Tom?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
When we look at goals, they essentially fall into two categories: more revenue and less expenses. And the best way to do the more revenue, I think we understand our revenue sources are taxes for the most part. Although there are a couple ideas potentially for selling town services, be they internet services or something like that. But the less expenses, we really have started, and I think we've done a reasonable job of putting a priority, to our expenses, and looking at how do we address the big ticket items. The big ticket items, if you look at what they are, they're medical expenses, pension expenses. I got streetlights in there because our electrical costs are pretty high, but we don't buy enough paper clips that if we eliminated all paper clips, we'd make an impact on the town's budget. And so this, putting a prioritization of our expenses, I think will lead us. And Marie knows, she's done this too, of the, when we talk about employees who have long-term liabilities, that OPEB liabilities that go with employees, and pension liabilities that will go with employees. And I think we ought to just take a look and potentially ask our CFO to come up with our top 5, 8, 9 expenses, and then come up with ways to potentially address those and make a significant impact on them. But similarly, I think we need revenue, and I've been saying this for 8 years, and we haven't really worked on the revenue side, but I think there are revenue opportunities for the town beyond just, incremental tax revenue of providing some good town services.
Mhm. Well, that, good comment. I don't know, I think about things like, like the streetlights. We've been on that for a long time, and, I wish we could just buy our own streetlights and just put them up,
And in fact, we can.
and maybe we should do it.
And one of the proposals, and Marie's heard me say this at the Energy Committee, and we're, whether we do this or we have to take our time doing it because how it impacts our discussions with Eversource,
Mhm.
is we have neighborhoods in the community now where we own we own the streetlights. Colony Hills, the residents own the streetlights, Eversource doesn't own them. We could find other communities that slowly approach, and that take small segments out, that, maybe it's not $400,000 or $200,000, but it's $30,000 that we pay Eversource a year for those streetlights. And we do, and I'm not saying that's the right approach, I'm just saying it's a potential approach.
Right.
That if it works on a townwide basis, it may work on a neighborhood basis, that you can bond it, and the amount you pay for the bond more than pays for the cost of the streetlights, and 10 years later, they're free and clear. But, I mean, it's approaches like that. I don't know that, I don't think we could, personally, I don't think that the town could, in one fell swoop, buy all our streetlights in the town and replace them all. We could buy them if we could operate the ones we have, but we couldn't replace them all in a year. We couldn't afford to do it all in a year. But if you do it over a 5 or 10-year period, maybe you could.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
The
Marie?
Energy Task Force is working on that. You
Oh, right,
know,
right,
Mark, that we
right.
can't do that right now. We can't do that. It was because right now they're in the middle of negotiation with Eversource and the DPU. You testified, and we got to wait until we hear the results from that, or else we're undermining. So, and again, we're going back to projects. I still think we've got to go. We must increase revenues outside the tax base. That should be a goal that we give to our town manager. We've got to decrease benefited positions because that's going to affect all of our liabilities going down. And it will actually affect not only our unfunded liabilities, but it's going to affect our pension costs as of September 30th. And whether we're outsourcing, insourcing, whatever we're doing to find, it's going one direction rather than the other. So I think we got to go above that and stay away from project goals. Maybe when we, as a task force, come and we make a recommendation, then that could be something that the town manager will move on because he's got a goal of finding alternate revenues. And you did the alternate revenue with the wireless. There we go.
So, this is the FY18, 17 goal sheet, okay? It's the overarching select board goals we developed with the facilitator, and then there are the specific project-based things that I put in that I believe are gonna meet the overall policy goals of the board. Can we go back to something like this for FY18? So, in fact, I think a lot of these goals stand year after year after year, because it's the same conversation, year after year after year.
It's the same
And there is
conversation.
no revenue source, nor no expenditure cut that is anywhere near as easily said or done as it is said. And that's what we bump up against annually. With the streetlights being a foremost example of that, quite honestly. That it's not, it's not the willingness, it's the ability, not the competence ability. I mean, do we have even the illegal ability to do it, which at this time we don't. But that makes it a lot like local option gas tax. What have you. Stormwater utility was approved by town meeting. That's great. That is new revenue coming from the same people. And so I think, and we didn't really do my evaluation, so we did start a list of things that kind of feed into these goals, and we can still do that at some point in time, but I think we've made good progress. And to you were talking about, asking Paul about the top expenditure things and how to, we do that. That is the budget process. this is what we do every year. And if there's a new way to go about it, we try and figure it out. So I think, let me say I think, we are overthinking it a little bit. We have this goals document. I would recommend, Tom, that we reintroduce this top half
Yeah.
and then start talking about what can we put on the bottom half, and I can certainly do my own version of it. I can tell you what of these things I feel like we've accomplished, and then what should go, below the line for FY18, if the board is open to that.
Or even changing things on the top of the line.
Sure.
But I mean, if I may,
Yeah, whatever.
so it is develop and utilize entrepreneurial and innovative organizational culture in order to retain essential and desired municipal services and municipal infrastructure in the face of revenue limits and cost pressures. 2, explore new revenue opportunities. Have I heard that before? 3, review board operational policies. 4, establish a mechanism to review Long Meadow general bylaws with a first-year emphasis on quality of life aesthetics provisions. 5, evaluate the town manager's central office to determine opportunities to provide support for day-to-day operations, strategic planning, and implementation and succession. And 6, build confidence in local government by advancing the success of the organization. So you could look at operational policies. We did get through a lot of those in FY17. We could certainly look at that. You have this first-year emphasis on quality of life and aesthetic provisions. We did do some of that at the Springtown meeting. The bylaw, you could do the establishment mechanism or continue the mechanism to review bylaws, and then you can give the bylaw committee, like this year, instead of aesthetics, it's tax base expansion, non-conforming lots, things like that, just as an example. And then central office stuff, that is always an ongoing thing. Build confidence in local government, that is an ongoing one. But by and large is not, these are still the same conversations we're having.
Yeah, but what's not on there is the stuff that I'm starting to bring up, which is, nowhere does it say increase the tax base, does it?
Yeah.
Revenue opportunities.
That's
Revenue-
revenue
revenue.
opportunities, it's not increase the property tax base.
Oh.
It's revenue opportunities. I would say, I would divide it between revenue outside the property tax, increase that, which you've done with the wireless, but then I would say,
The tower.
huh?
That's a cell tower. That's
Cell
very
tower.
different from wireless.
Cell tower,
Cell tower.
the cell tower. And then the others expand the tax base, but what we don't have there is something that would be decreasing our OPEB liabilities, which,
I
so that's
know.
why I'd like to have an
Yeah.
extra segment on there. I'm not saying those are wrong, I just think I'd like to expand the goals to one more,
I-
for
the other thing is-
financials.
The other thing is, and you and I always go butt heads on this, keep saying the same thing over and over again without saying, oh yeah, no, by the way, we did this here in this
Oh, I
particular
know.
instance.
This year we did
Because-
it, but I
because-
think it should be one of the goals.
OPEB, there is a point at which OPEB reduction is service reduction.
I know.
And, I think, Paul and I, we talk about 100 different ideas about doing the stuff when we prepare the budget, and when we think there's things on that fit right now, we move on, we do.
So, Stephen, I know probably shouldn't be saying this in public, but in theory, we could ask for a policy that anybody who retires gets replaced with 2 or 3 part-time people who are not benefited employees. And long-term, the town has no pension liabilities and no retiree medical benefits, because everybody working for the town, we got a whole bunch of people working 10 hours a week or 12 hours a week. In theory, we could do that. I'm not sure it makes sense, and I'm not
It's-
proposing that we do that. That's kind of almost ad
Like
absurdum.
Long Meadow Mart.
Well,
Like
but it could, I hate to say
Well,
that, but.
there's a charter issue there, but the point is well taken, that the town, we could all agree that, you know what, we're gonna get rid of benefit employees, we're just gonna fill with a contract.
Let me just finish my thought here. Or on the other hand, we can say, our benefit employees cost us a lot of money. We got to figure out a way to provide those benefits, be they pensions or retiree medical insurance, at a lower cost, which may be, we don't like investing with the low return at the Hampden County Retirement Board, and if we invest somewhere else, we can save X number of dollars. Or, so there's an alternative potential for achieving the goal of reducing our long-term employee costs that aren't necessarily the draconian system of everybody works for the town for 10 hours a week. And, you know, I'm not sure that we've looked at both sides. I'm not sure we've looked at either side necessarily, but.
I think benefit employees, we've got to start measuring that. Because look, you look at it and you see, we're up to 910. So we increased last year. If we keep increasing every single year and we go in that trajectory, we're not going to be able to do it. So we have to find some way that we provide services in an innovative and different way if we're going to make it in the future. I'm not saying make everyone part-time. I'm not saying, but we've got to start changing the direction this is going. It's still going up. So I think if you don't measure it, you don't change it. And I think the number of benefit employees hired by the school committee as well as by the town side has to be measured, and we have to watch that. I'm not saying chop off and fire 20, 30 people. I'm saying, but let's start getting it going in that direction. Maybe it's going to be through attrition. Maybe it's going to be you're going to outsource, insource with other towns. But we have to see it's going in that direction. So I think it's got to be a goal. Now, do we have to say the goal is actually get rid of benefited positions? No, but we should say the goal is we have to decrease our current costs, our current pension and OPEB costs, as well as our future. And how are we going to do that? And I'm not going to say this is a project and this is how you guys are going to do it. But if we start measuring it and we say it's a goal, then we're going to start moving in that direction. So I don't think it's outrageous.
You keep saying it like we're not already doing it.
Okay.
That's what the way you're phrasing it
Yes.
is, we need to start. I object to that.
Okay,
We
did
do
this
it
year, did we
annually.
increase? This year we increased, and there was reasons we increased, I know.
Right.
We sat here and we agreed to the increase of 2 new positions on town side, and there was a purpose for that.
Correct.
But I think we have to have a goal in the future that we really have to be careful that this doesn't become a regular
Right.
trend.
But my addendum to that goal is always without compromising core services.
Right, but then we have to really think about how we're going to present core services, and just like the survey said, what are the core services going to be in 10 years?
Right.
And we have to there are going to have to be serious sacrifices and changes in those core services in 10 years, and that's what the survey that you brought out, and people started to have that discussion. I'm saying, just like Tom says, let's inch our way so we don't have to be there. Let's inch our way carefully so we don't have to hit that ceiling.
Right, let's.
Yes.
My response is, we are. And that's where, when we keep saying this is a goal, we keep making it sound like we're not already engaged in doing this. And that's what I object to.
Okay,
It is we
that-
are engaged in doing this, and we point it out every year. So, yes, last year we did add some positions, but I think we also did some other things that may have changed it in other departments. But it's, like I said, the way you're communicating it, Marie, whether it's your intention or not, the way you're saying it is we don't already do it.
No, what I'm saying is it's not a goal now.
It is a goal
That goal
now.
sheet, you just read the goal sheet. It's not on the goal sheet. I'm saying let's add an 8 point to the goal sheet, and we start measuring and we watch it, and it's a goal. Right now, it's not a goal. That's all. That's why I asked it to become a section 8 on the goals and to consider it.
Okay, so you would say measuring fully those benefited positions with a goal of like stabilizing them and then trying to reduce them.
Well,
if
just
possible.
what I'm saying is we have to decrease our employment costs.
Right.
Future
So one
insurance.
thing would
It's
be
on
to
here.
try to stabilize,
It's under explore new revenue. It's under explore new revenue opportunities, and I say, the goal we had was seek opportunities to reduce OPEB and pension liabilities,
you know,
and because savings in the world we live in, savings and new revenue are the same thing. When,
okay,
Oh.
Mr. Sturz,
No, I
please.
just want to add, I mean, I don't disagree that it should be a goal, but just from a historical perspective, when we did our first OPEB study, probably 9 or 11 years ago, our OPEB liability was 40-something million.
Yeah.
There's been a number of steps over the last 9 or 10 years that have reduced that down to we're in the $30 million right now. And it's not because of our cash funding into a bank account, it's because of other things that have happened.
Policy
Yeah.
changes.
Well, policy changes, but I'll just name a quick few. School lunch privatized.
Exactly.
It did get a number of employees off. The benefits to the number of employees were reduced. We adopted what's known as Section 18 on Chapter 32B, which required anybody eligible for Medicare, that is their primary health insurance, and that the town is secondary. So it would put the federal government paying first as opposed to the town of Long Meadow. More recently, we went through and we added deductibles to employee health insurance about 3 or 4 years ago. We changed the egg whip.
Egg whip, that's
You know,
right.
so there's been a number of things that have been done without a cash outlay. That is basically what you're saying too, that we have dropped that OPEB liability. And I think, you know, again, I agree, we still need to pursue those other types of options per se. I know that the Scantic Valley Board is looking at high deductible health insurance plans, maybe tacked on with health savings accounts, and/or also looking at what the latest deductibles are out of the GIC, and having the Scantic Valley Board move to a little bit higher deductible than we currently have. So, again, I mean, those are the action steps that we have to follow. But we have done things in the past to reduce our liabilities, and they've been successful.
All right. So we should keep track of them. All right, is there any other discussion on goals, or should we move on to the next?
If we're going to have it for the next meeting, can we have the sheets sent back to us?
Yes, the Steve.
The existing
Steven?
one.
Yeah, the
sheet?
existing sheet sent to us.
The top part.
Debbie, you said that up
And then we can
again.
Yes.
plug in,
I don't keep anything.
and then we plug in projects or ideas underneath
Yes.
those. And then we'll,
I hope they caught that on camera.
okay, so we'll continue. So, very good.
Wasn't there a thing on professionalism?
Hashtag fail.
Now we are looking at the 3-year budgetary projection before we go back to appointments to the Charter Review Committee,
Can't wait.
right?
I just hope after all this discussion about benefits, Lena shows up for work tomorrow.
But, I mean, there's a hard copy here, just in case.
All right.
I think I have one probably.
Yeah. Just to follow along would be easier than looking at the computer screen.
Do you guys want me to project it, or are you okay looking at the hard copies?
Well, with the
Okay.
people,
It really doesn't. It won't show up.
It's,
It won't show up well.
I mean, this is more theoretical. I have an extra one.
No, I have an extra.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah, same. A number of years ago, we began receiving and applying for certification and awards from the GFOA. Most recently, we've submitted the FY16 financial reporting, and we're hoping to hear from them this month whether we receive the award on financial reporting. The last 2 years, we received the budgetary report award, and we will be submitting the FY18 budget information very shortly. But over the last 2 years, after receiving the award, they also give us the critique of what they think we can improve on. In each one of the last 2 years, the 2 areas of the critique were more of a longer-term budget projection, minimally 3 years, and then long-term financial goals of all things. So what I've tried to do is put a narrative together along with a numeric presentation in the background of something that I would like to put into the GFOA submission with regards to a 3-year budget projection. This one actually would encompass FY19 through 21. I don't think there's anything new. It's just this is the same format that we've used in the past. The only thing that I have done is maybe lessen the conservatism I've historically put together when I've done initial budget reviews. As an example, when it comes to the property taxes, there's no magic with the property taxes. It's a strict Prop 2.5 calculation. I've kept the new growth amounts relatively stable. I think I've used $150,000, which is a lower part of an average over the last 5 to 10 years. But what I've done, what I've deviated from in the past is I historically have kept estimated receipts and state receipts level funded in the past, moving forward. The reality is they go up roughly about 2% every year. So I've tried to be more realistic with the budgetary projections in this particular case. So I've increased the state aid, I've increased the local receipts by 2% every year. I also included the certain things that I know that are going to happen that will also enhance or have some effect on our operating budget. FY19, the Springfield Casino opens, and we're anticipating to receive $275,000 from them opening up their doors. I've built that into the budget. It's going to be
Can-
revenues into the town.
We can do that even though it's spoken for?
It's not
It's
spoken
not
for until
spoken
we
for.
speak. It's
Well, I thought
revenue
it-
into the town.
I thought it had to go towards the road repairs.
Well, it's,
It could, but
it's, yeah.
It's revenue into the town.
We don't agree on this, by the way. He and I do not agree on this.
it certainly could. I mean, if it does, it does. I mean, I'm not saying where it goes, I'm saying it's coming in.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's coming in.
Okay.
So it's identified as a revenue source. I believe it's misleading to lump it as kind of a revenue source that seems to be along with the other general revenues. Because I do think that it is not a permanent revenue source. And so to attach it to a permanent government function, even though it's
19 years, 18 years?
15 years.
15 years.
It's 15 years as long as the casino is operating. So, I think, my view is, it should be tied to, not necessarily an automatically recurring thing. First of all, it's supposed to be infrastructure and public safety generally. It's kind of got these general categories. Infrastructure is our Department of Public Works, public safety is police and fire. Those are the two biggest categories of our general budget anyway. So could there be offsets for current expenditures? Yes, but I mean, I'm going to resist the temptation to dump it into salaries, unless it's something tied to specifically the casinos. But Paul is correct in that it is a revenue thing, and it may help, partially offset, but we have to have that. I'm of the belief that I don't count the chickens until the eggs are hatched, and so until I see the money in hand, I'm somewhat resistant to programming it.
Right. But just, now, could that money be kept in its own line item, kind of separate, so that, I guess I'm trying to think of because I know, I was involved with the YMCA, for example, and they gave me a list of all the different accounts, and they had all these different accounts, and they were separate, and so they were used for specific purposes and stuff for.
We have a number of what are known as special revenue funds also.
Yeah, okay.
But again, my understanding of this money, it might be earmarked for road reconstruction or police and fire safety, but
Yeah.
when it comes into the town, I believe it's going to go into the general fund. Now, if we
Oh,
want
I
to
see.
segregate it out, that's the town's option.
Mhm.
We can do that. But and that would have to be through vote of town meeting, that we could
Okay.
certainly do that, to have the money come in, general fund, move it out to whatever special purpose you folks want.
Right.
That's fine. Now, the other thing that I've done, though, just to maybe calm Stephen down a little bit in that regard, is that our debt service will drop off over these number of years, and I don't know what new projects will come in, but even though the debt service is dropping off in the future years, I've kept it at minimum high levels, because I know there's going to be additional debt that we're going to incur over the next several years, too. So I've kind of built in a little cushion there to offset that infrastructure question about this money coming in.
Okay, to finish up, but if we had it in a different revenue source, so to speak, would that be an advantage for us when different agencies, when they look at us, and look for our financial stability, would they think that we were being fiscally prudent?
Not unless we put it into the operational stabilization fund, or it ended up in free cash. Those are the only two types of reserves that they look at.
Okay, thank you.
Again, I argue some things about, the school department has some school choice money in their background, and, how could we get credit for that school choice money as being a reserve? We can't.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. And Marie, do you want to go, and then?
I don't know, what did we do at town meeting? Town meeting, I thought we set up reserves, is that only for the 800,000?
That is for the original amount that we received, the lump sum payment of the $800 and some odd thousand. We moved that into a special revenue account specifically for, that was for engineering services for the whole
Right.
Route 5 corridor.
I thought it was gonna be all the casino money because we're gonna need that money to pay for the bonds for the street projects. So I'm just surprised to hear it's rolling into general. But I know this is just your layout, but I thought it was always gonna go into that
That's based
MGM
on-
casino
But
thing.
this is DOR, right? DOR tells you where it goes.
Okay.
Unless you take a special action and make a special revenue. you know.
And that's why we had to move the other money, because DOR saying that money was going to go into the general fund, the 800,000. That's why we had to act at town meeting to segregate it out for special purposes.
So we have to, if we wanna do that, anytime money comes in, every single year, we'd have to vote to take the 275 to put it in that casino fund. We couldn't say all future revenues.
Hold on.
Yeah,
It's tied to the use. The 850 goes into a special revenue account because the 850 is specifically for intersections.
yeah.
The 275 annually is generally infrastructure, public safety, not specific projects, not
But we're not gonna, it's 895 is not gonna cover the road project.
understood.
Yeah,
It could be conceptually used for debt service, but it hasn't been programmed yet. We haven't made that decision yet.
okay. All right, thank you.
So again, I mean, that's basically it on the revenue side. I have not used any reserves to show the numbers here, and you see they do end up in deficits. On the expense side, I've salaries 3%, 2% cost of living with the 1% amount to cover step increases. The historical 7.5% health insurance, 8%
Pension.
for pension, 5% on the liability insurance. I have fully funded your policies for OPEB and the additional 0.25% every year to be added, not only to the OPEB, but also to the capital with the additional 0.25%. I've looked at debt service. I looked at the Springfield charges that they had for water and sewer and tried to incorporate their numbers in here. And the bottom line is we do show a deficit of year one, a very small deficit, and then an ever-increasing deficit moving upward in future years. Again, it's a preliminary projection that I'm just kind of bringing it forward. If there's any real objection, I do want to put it in the publication that we'll be sending in, because again, that is one of the critiques that they have against what we've submitted in the past.
Tom, can I ask Paul?
Oh,
Paul,
yes.
you know, I understand this is a lot of work, and clearly there are a lot of assumptions in here, but you did a great job in doing it. I think my biggest question is, so the GFOA is telling us they'd like a 3-year budget projection, but there's no implication that what they'd like is a 3-year balanced budget projection, or just the 3-year?
There is no implication. I think what they would
Okay.
like to see, where I've generalized this, is how we're going to handle those deficits, and I've kind of left that open-ended.
Right.
Like, we're going to take them as they come and evaluate where we are and what we have to do.
I mean, you know,
No, I don't, no, it does not,
Okay.
it does not, not that I'm aware of, I'll double check.
no,
It did not
I'm
state
just saying, because for people at home, the third year out, you know, where you are right now is a $1.2 million, shortfall in revenue or excess in expenses, and that's a lot of money on what's projected to be a $72 million budget at the time, so.
Right. I mean, the other thing too is this, moving forward, the finance committee is now engaged on doing their long-term forecasting. Potentially, this would be the backbone for them to utilize and build off a little longer term, which, I mean, certainly this is more just financial spreadsheet calculations moving out into anything longer. But it
getting
would
back
give
to
them.
Getting back to the discussion we just had, though, it clearly sets the goal for increased revenue or reduced expenses over
Sure.
the next 3 years. I mean, even if you don't get the whole $1.2 million, you got to do something to cut into that.
Right. I mean, the alternatives, I mean, I don't want to say it's going to all be on the expense side. I mean, it could be a combination of expense, revenue, whatever. I did not put in the development for the Dwight Road intersection there. I just made a comment about it, that it's going to be a reality in a few years, but any additional revenue is immediately going to be
revenue neutral
offset.
over this
Right, it's revenue neutral for the first couple of years.
Well, over this
Right.
horizon.
Right, so yeah, for this horizon, once we know factually what that assessment is, and once it starts to be revenue productive for us or revenue enhancement, we'll add in those numbers. But again, I just tried to give them something that's going to at least be the start and see what they say about this projection. At least to get that initial critique of us failing in that area, kind of off that report card.
Tom?
Yes, Marie?
The other thing you said they wanted us to do were financial goals. Were there any
Longer-term
financial
goals, yes.
What, do you have a list of what you would recommend for those?
I do.
Okay, maybe that's what we should be adopting for financial goals.
Well, I think what'll happen now is, I think with Stevens, or the chart that you folks already have, what I will do is I will work with Steven, I will give them, I mean, some of them are the same, don't get me wrong. But to have these incorporated into there for your review, you know, one of them I have is to reduce the town's unfunded pension and OPEB liability through alternatives to cash funding.
Yeah.
Which is a broader type of scenario as opposed to throwing in cash. And,
Yeah.
you know, the two objectives might be enhance our investment earnings, is doing it, and you know, redefining the benefits, the higher benefit or higher deductible types of things. Those would have an impact on our OPEB liability, but a lot of them are the same. So I would just work with Stephen to get those incorporated into that document.
Oh, that'd be great, yeah. And I know in the past there's been policy issues they've asked us to improve on. Are there any policy things that we still have to work on financially?
Again, when it comes to policy, I mean, I think this is meant to also be policy too. How are we going to do the long-term stuff?
Okay.
They've actually liked a lot of the policies that we have written.
Oh, good.
Quite honestly, like I said, the two areas that we are critiqued on most heavily is the budgetary projection and the longer-term goals.
One last question,
Yeah.
Tom. The other thing I know we've always been hit on, I'm thrown on this, is our cash, free cash reserves and stabilization fund. And our OPEB is not counted towards that.
Correct.
When are we going to decide we're putting our money in the wrong way? And we should be going less percentage in OPEB and more in Operation Stabilization? Or do you think they're finally going to come around to our way of thinking?
Well,
of things?
I think eventually the bond rating agencies are going to come around and recognize more of the OPEB. You know, it's been said for years that they were going to be doing it. I think we've kind of lagged with them actually doing that up front, but I have to believe that they're going to be paying more and more attention. To what I hear every time is that they're going to be paying more and more attention to the OPEB liability. So we are doing pretty good in that regard, better than most communities. We're not doing perfect, but we are doing better than most communities with the amount of money that we have and our commitment to it. The policy directive that we have in order to fund that, I think, is pretty, I don't want to say aggressive, but it you know, it's a very big commitment to have that amount of money go in annually plus increase at 0.25% every year of property taxes. Those are pretty good chunks of change.
But should we shift some of that back to Operation Stabilization? Because we went down this year.
We are going to go down in free cash. I mean, I would project right now we're probably going to have $650,000 of free cash. Last year we had $1 million. That drop of $350,000, we did not go up that high on the Operational Stabilization Fund. So in essence, our general reserves are going to go down. I don't know how to fix that.
But Marie, lower free cash is actually better budgeting. It means we're not overtaxing people for money we
Yeah,
don't
the
need.
bond people are upset because we're not at 6%. We're supposed to be between 6 and 10, and we're now slipping below
We're
6.
slipping below 6.
Our reserves.
Our reserves.
Right. Well, it's 5 and 10, but we're at the lower end of the scale.
And unless we put a policy in place that's going to find some other way to push that up, which is, I'm wondering if we need a new policy, because I think we're going to get hit.
Well, the only thing I can say is in the FY19 budget, we make a commitment to put in X amount of dollars out of the budget right away, just as we committed to X% going towards OPEB or X% going towards capital. We make that other commitment until at such time as we reach, you know, Y% of the operating budget.
Okay, thank
There's
you.
a lot of demands, so,
I know.
you know,
Yeah, that's-
it's priorities.
We're going to get killed.
That's the problem, there's too many demands.
Thank you.
All right. The only other question, the debt management and what we pay for the loans for the new high school and figuring out the DPW, I mean, all that's calculated in this?
All this is, yes, all that is calculated on the debt service minimally. It's because we have those debt payments known, until we pay it off,
Right.
2037. So all those are actual numbers from what is known minimally, and I think there is some cushion in there, again, to address the non-exempt debt. I have some cushion in there that we don't go below a certain level, that I've level funded that, even though those types of things that are currently being paid out of that account will be retired. The one caveat I will say that I did speak to financial advisor today, we will be looking at refinancing the initial high school debt, potentially in the fall. We have about 20 more years to go on there, and some of those latter year payments, the ones that are paid in 2037, we're paying 5% plus or minus percentage points, basis points. He thinks we can save at least $1 million in refinancing that, so we will be looking to do that. We hopefully have a conference call later on this week with Stephen and Cheryl Kudnick, and we'll set up some timetable, but we're looking at sometime in the early fall to get that done. We'll see how the restructuring goes, but minimally, there's a pretty substantial amount of savings to be had.
Great.
Marie, I'm going to propose that the town buy a season lottery ticket with the theory that if it loses, we're supporting state aid anyway.
There you go.
And if it wins, we can use the money, right?
Well, maybe at our
my
potluck in the
theory.
fall, we'll
What?
always buy the
That's my
lottery
keynote
tickets.
theory.
Your keynote theory.
I'm paying my own salary if I lose.
That's right.
Yeah, well, Paul, thank you for all your work
Thanks.
on this projection, and you always impress the board with your attention to detail and thinking ahead, and it doesn't seem like anything gets by you. I wish you were in charge of my personal budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're moved all the way down. I don't know if we have any subcommittee reports.
Not really. The Energy Committee met, but there's a lot we still have to do, and so I'll do it the next meeting.
Okay.
Tom, my pension review
Yeah.
task force, I did meet with the school committee at their last meeting. They're considering, and they'll let us know about appointing somebody from the school committee, but with somebody from the finance committee on board, I'm going to start moving forward with that now.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we are facing this situation with the vote. And,
does that
well,
mean I go
what
home?
we have, I know you'd like to exit quickly, but there, so I proposed one process for rating the candidates, so I see very few ties. Mark is in disagreement with it, and so I don't know if we're at a point where we are really just voting on the process, and because you've been involved in the process of other
Oh, I
sort
see.
of
Okay.
board selections and committees, I don't know if we have to go, the first step needs to be to approve the process that I recommended, or,
Of course, I
Yeah,
didn't hear the
because that would-
discussion, but, okay, now
Yeah.
I'm gonna put my foot in it. What we've done in the past is
Right.
there's 8 positions.
there's,
Okay.
yes, 8
There's 6
positions
plus
now.
2, there's
6
8
plus 2, yes.
positions. I would, how did we do it? You could either do it either way. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Right.
And then you add, and whoever's got the lowest number is number 1, and then you
Right.
you figure out that way, and usually it ends up falling out on the first round. And then you can, the question is, and the process we've always argued, is if you don't have a consensus, but you probably will, because there's only 3 of you, then you just say, we're going to redo it. But I would just go 1 through 8.
Because what I propose
Or
is that we
yeah.
would, well, what I proposed is
None of you vote.
that you give 3 people a 1 vote, and then you would go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so that way you would
I think you're
increase
more
the
likely to
chances.
get
I think
fights.
there'd be less ties.
Oh, I think there'd be more time, but more people would, I would just say, simplify it, go 1 through 8. Because
One through
if you limit out 3, then Mark is definitely gonna have his own set from him, and then you'll be less likely to get, because you're asking who's their top 3
So
people.
Marie, here's my concern, is
Okay.
that, no, I just stated,
Okay.
that the candidates are sufficiently qualified, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion,
Right.
that the difference between the 1 and the 4 may be insignificant, and yet they end up, it becomes an arbitrary, well, do I put them 3 or 4, or 4 and 3, or do I put them 3, 4, and 5, or 5, 4, you know, I really think so. Tom, I was thinking about an alternative. You want to do your top 3.
Yeah.
What if we did just the top 4, just voted out, everybody put up their top 4 and see what that does? In theory, if only 3 of us are voting, in theory, you know, we could get a whole bunch of people with 1 vote and a few people with 2 votes. But I don't
Okay.
think, I'm not sure that that's gonna happen.
So we
But
would
why don't
do
we
the-
start,
so
but
we'd start
only
with-
only top vote, who do you want appointed?
The top 4 votes, and then what about?
Well,
doing
let's see
2,
what
3,
happens.
rank?
And if it turns out after that, we've only appointed 4 people, then we'll say, okay, put in your 5th person that you want to appoint, or your 6th person. I just want to appoint people and not rank them, that's all. I just want to say, you know, because for me, the 6th person on the committee has the same voting rights as the 1st person on the committee, and I don't see a reason to rank them, as opposed to just say, who are the 5 people, you know, I'd like to do, who are the 6 people I want, who are the 6 people, and Richard, who are the 6 people, and if we come up with, and anybody who gets 3 votes is probably gonna be appointed, anybody who gets 2 votes ought to be appointed, and then if we still don't have enough people on the committee, then you say, okay, let's, you know, just consider the people who are left with 1 vote, and everybody gets to pick 1 of those, or 2 of those, or however we need. But the purpose is, we only vote for people we want, you don't vote for people you don't want.
Well, I think there's always going to be ranking, but then the positive side of this, Richard, is that I believe there's probably a joint consciousness in this room that I don't think it's going to be that hard, and you guys will work it out. If even if it takes you 2 or 3 votes, any of that process is going to
But
get
Marie, what
a
you missed
great
is,
group.
I'm not gonna rank.
Oh, you're not going to rank?
I won't rank.
But you're the one who taught me ranking.
But in this process, it's not,
Okay.
it doesn't
So-
work.
And so if we did 4 1 votes, you don't think we could follow that with a 2 and a 3?
Let's just do 4 1 votes and see what happens. Because if we don't have enough people, by us then adding another person, it essentially is our number 2 or our number 3, right?
Correct, yeah,
But we're not voting, we're just voting, if
But then-
4 1 votes
yeah.
don't come up with 8 different people, then we'll add another person.
And where do you stand, Richard?
I kind of go back like you go into a voting booth and you got 8 people you're going to put up and you just says, dit. And that's it. You place your vote. I don't know what's wrong with it.
That's where I am.
So
Yeah.
so you think we should do,
Yeah, I just think we vote for 6 people and 2 alternates. And that's why you do it in an election ballot.
I think you're going to work out.
Yeah.
It's-
But I
it's
think
gonna-
they should be separate votes, Richard, just so there's no confusion.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
vote for
we
6
have the
people.
6 and then we have the 2 alternates.
Then-
I think we're going to have a lot of 2s. Or 3. I think we're going to have a lot of 2s.
But if we get
And
any
then we'll be
1s, then you
stuck.
re-vote among the 2s.
Well,
That's it.
so we'll have,
I mean,
we'll
if I
have some
can't vote for
3s,
somebody who I
so
voted for because they only got 1 vote, somebody's gonna get appointed.
2s and 1s. I think we're going to have, I just really think we're going to run into, I mean, I would, if
Well, I think we
you know,
should
I would
vote
say
and see what
4, and then
happens.
if we just did 2 more people with a 2 and a 3, I think that would make it a lot easier, so we could get it in 1 vote.
Go for it.
Because
You
I
guys
just
can do
think
it.
we're going to,
So
Otherwise
he's
we'll be-
agreed to the 4, so do
So
the 4.
let's vote on 4 and see
start
what
the 4 and
happens.
see what happens, and you might be.
If we don't have enough, Tom, if we don't
Okay.
get 6 people out of those 4,
all right. Okay,
All right.
well,
we'll vote for 2 more. Or
And
1 more, or
it's
2 more.
9:30.
And we'll be here till 11.
I'm out.
Or 12.
okay.
All right, good luck, you guys.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you,
thank you,
Marie, for your
Marie.
input. So I will just.
So we're gonna pick 4 people.
Yeah, I'm just making adjustments to my other list, 2, 3. All right. So, where do we start?
But
do we give
if
these-
you vote just for 4, okay,
We have 8,
and we have 8 positions.
yeah.
If you vote for 4 and you're telling me that you think you can make an entire committee out of that first vote, then that's very unfair to the rest of the people.
Well, but that means that in order to make a committee,
No, it
people
don't-
get
it don't-
either 3 or 2 votes.
Yeah, but it only means that that may have been your first 4 people that you
You're right.
wanted, but that necessarily
I'll-
shouldn't fit the whole committee, should it?
I'll vote for 6, Richard.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
I think we go for 6.
6 ones.
6 ones. You want me to go first?
Okay.
When I say Dave, that's lawyer Dave. Arlene?
Okay.
Jerry? Larry?
Okay.
Taz? And Mike, Michael Clark.
6, okay. Do you want to repeat them or
No.
go to the next one?
Okay. You ready?
Okay. Ready?
And I have Peter
Okay,
and Gerald
okay,
and Arlene
okay,
and Larry
yeah,
and Anastasius
okay,
and Martel.
okay. 4, 5, 6, okay.
We're waiting for Mark.
Oh, I didn't
yeah.
realize you were waiting
Oh,
for
yeah,
me.
we're
Oh,
waiting
I'm
for
sorry.
you. That's all right. Yeah.
You doing a little voter fraud
No,
over there?
I, Peter Landon, Liz Bone, Jerry Nolet, Arlene Miller, Larry Starr, and David Martell.
Okay.
So here's the way I got my spreadsheet, Tom, okay?
Oh, yeah. No, because you.
David Martell has got 3 votes. Larry Starr has 3 votes. Arlene Miller has 3 votes. Jerry Nolet has 3 votes, right? Peter Landon has 2 votes. And Dr. Angelides has 2 votes. And that's 6 people.
But we need 8.
No,
That's
there's
fine.
there's 6 primaries.
But that's
6
6
finals.
people,
Yeah, that's the 6 primaries.
right?
All right.
I got 8.
What?
I counted 8.
So
across.
Peter Landon has 2 votes,
Yeah.
mine and Tom's.
Yeah,
Okay, Jerry Nolet has 3 votes.
Yeah.
Arlene Miller has 3 votes.
yeah,
Larry Starr has 3 votes.
yeah,
Dr. Angelides has 2 votes, Tom and Richard.
yeah,
And Dave Martell has 3 votes.
yeah, and I have,
So 1, 2,
Michael
3,
Clark
4.
with 1.
Well,
Liz
but
Bone.
we're voting for 6 primary people.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so people with 3 votes and 2 votes, right, Tom?
Okay,
I thought we were doing all 8 at the same time.
Yeah, we did all 6.
I
We
thought-
did 6.
No, but I figured we would, based on those votes, we would place all 8 people on.
But you can't place,
But I don't know if we have, how many times.
We haven't voted, well, you could, but we didn't really submit who we wanted for alternates.
Okay, I don't see the difference.
Well,
but-
there's likely no difference theoretically, because, yeah, you're right, the 2 that are left over likely should be the
They
alternates.
should be the top
'Cause
one. I mean, they're
the ones
all
that-
Fine.
they're the ones that
qualified
actually gotta vote.
candidates.
fine.
Do
Yeah.
we have the next?
Okay, you got it.
So who are the
Michael
next?
Clark and Liz Bone have votes.
And they both have ones. Well, then there we go. That's great. Thank you.
How tough is that?
I'm glad we worked out better. I was a little shaky there, but
Okay.
it worked
We
out.
got Dave,
I knew it
Larry,
would work out. I
Jerry,
mean, I-
Yeah, well,
Taz, and who
we
was
got
the
like,
other?
I mean, it was nice to get it all in
For the
one shot.
primary.
Wow,
Pete.
that is great news. So congratulations to those folks
Okay,
that we can repeat their names.
Arlene.
Peter Langdon, Jerry Noet, Arlene Miller, Larry Starr, Dr. Angelides, and David Martell. We have 2 alternates of Mike Clark and Liz Bone, and their input will be valuable. So, I am glad it went smoothly. I was a little concerned, but I'm glad it worked out. So, we can use this technique again in the future, I guess.
Nice democratic process.
Okay.
The
And
only
that
thing is,
is,
unfortunately, we didn't have all of our board members here to vote.
right, the hard part was that we could have had 4 people voting instead we just had 3, but,
We could have 5 people voting.
well, that would be a conflict, so. Because, well, whatever. So I believe that's it. If we have no further comments, I would be looking for a motion
wait.
to adjourn.
I did
Oh.
leave, I did, sorry, I want to get out of here too, but I just wanted to remind the board that, well, one, I'm going to be at a seminar tomorrow, so cell phone's the best way to get in touch with me.
Okay,
And then, did I have vacation coming up first 2 weeks in August? I know we have another meeting before then, but
first
just
couple weeks in August.
first 2 weeks in August, and Paul will be acting town manager for those 2
You
weeks.
taking another vacation?
Okay.
I'm
That's-
going to give vacation time back to the town by, at the
You
end of
should
the
give
year.
half your pay back.
I had to get paid for the kitchen so I could expand our tax base, Richard.
Yeah.
Paid.
yeah.
Just kidding, folks.
Just
Just
spend your
kidding.
money in town, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a second to the adjourn?
Yes, second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, well, thank you very much for watching us on television, and great meeting. Thank you.